Every kid imagines this scene. The moment when their name is called. When they're invited on stage in front of the whole hockey world. And now it happens. Here.
Look, give me something to believe in, yeah.
Fans dream the same dream, especially when hockey for their favorite team ends in early spring. In this country, a frustrating season has now been consigned to history. The brightest young talent on the planet has been assembled, and one of those players will soon be on your side.
Look, give me something to believe in, yeah.
For only the second time, an ancient, storied franchise chooses first, with 6 other Canadian teams following in quick succession. The names at the top of everyone's list are tantalizing. Some with familiar lineage, some who have already excelled on a big stage.
Look, give me something to believe in, yeah. 'Cause I'm looking for something.
Today comes the first glimpse of a better tomorrow. All you have to do is believe.
Buffalo, New York, a city accustomed to cross-border shoppers. Tonight, a twist on the search for a great deal with the 7 Canadian clubs, all with high picks to spend. Austin Matthews is here, waiting for his moment. The American holding off a late season charge from one of the most unique personalities, Patrick Laine. Winnipeg has him circled. Then there's Jesse Puljujarvi and Matthew Tkachuk. They both won season-ending titles, yet there's much less of a consensus about their destinations. Tkachuk, one of several players available tonight whose fathers played in the NHL. And Pierre-Luc Dubois, top-ranked North American skater. He does everything well. 2 Americans, 2 Finns, a Canadian. A lot of Canadian participation as well. Early in the first round of the 2016 NHL Draft on Sportsnet from First Niagara Center in Buffalo. It is packed. All 5,000 seats available. The public snapped up immediately. They're now scalping them outside for the draft. The NHL Draft is what happens when the Toronto Maple Leafs have the first pick overall and it's so close to the GTA. Hi, everybody. Welcome to tonight's proceedings. I'm Darren Millard along with Mike Johnson, Sam Cosentino, and Damian Cox. Toronto finally has the spotlight in the first overall pick for the first time since 1985, yet there's a lot of discussion taking place that a team like Edmonton or Calgary could steal it.
Yeah, I mean, Toronto gets first overall, Austin Matthews. Maybe it's a benefit that it's a bit of a no-brainer for them because they want to take that #1 centerman. But you're right, Darren. The conversation and the intrigue really starts, I think, at number 3 with Columbus. Jesse Puljujarvi available. I think a lot of the Canadian teams would covet him. Both Edmonton, Calgary would like to move up. Lots of moving pieces going on right now, next 15, 20 minutes.
You know what's funny? It would be Armageddon to me, but if you looked at Edmonton and Calgary and they swapped picks from 4 to 6 and 6 to 4, you'd probably be put in a better position to pick a player that you want that suits your need best, because Calgary needs skill up front, yet they're picking 6. They're probably in a place to get a defenseman. I look at Edmonton, yes, they need a defenseman, but they're probably in a place where they're going to get a forward. So we'll see if something transpires. It would be Armageddon if it were Calgary and Edmonton getting together.
Challenge for Edmonton, though, is they need a defenseman who can play now. And all the guys, maybe Sergachev might be the one guy who can, but the other couple high-ranked guys, I don't know if they can step in and help Edmonton the way they need next year.
I mean, the weird thing about the draft is we just awarded the Stanley Cup to the Pittsburgh Penguins. We're already started on next season, right?
Yeah.
And there's 30 teams here tonight who say, we're going to make a difference. We're going to make our team better. They've got fans at home, well, and in this building, anticipating that they'll do that starting today.
Congratulations. You suffered through the quietest spring in Canadian rinks from the NHL level. But this is the reward. Look at the front half of this NHL draft tonight. What's going to happen? Toronto, Winnipeg won the right to select 1-2 via the draft lottery. Edmonton checks in with another top 5 pick, followed by Vancouver and Calgary. And then you have the Montreal Canadiens and Ottawa Senators at 9 and 12. Our team tonight will also consist of Jeff Merrick. He will interview every Canadian team selection, provide insight throughout the night. Sofia Jurskovic will keep everyone up to date in the reaction from social media and reporting from the draft floor. Relaying the developing stories, Elliot Friedman and John Shannon. Elliot.
Well, you guys hit on it a little bit there, Darren. There's no question that the early season focus has been on the Columbus draft table. Jarmo Kekalainen in several lengthy conversations with the likes of Peter Chiarelli, Brad Treliving, and Tim Murray in Buffalo. No question the Sabres here, having the number 8 pick, have also talked about moving up. I think there's the real question here is, can Kekalainen make this deal and have somebody take one of his contracts off his hands? Earlier this year, his team won the Calder Cup, the Lake Erie American Hockey League team, and it's believed they've got about 6 players who could be ready to play in the NHL next season. He wants to clear some people out. Can he do it? Package that with the number 3 pick. I think that's the best chance we see that position move today. John?
Elliot, one of the key discussions that occurred over the last 20 minutes, Marc Bergevin, Brian McClellan, Washington and Montreal. What is going on there? We know the Canadians need to improve their team. We know the Caps are not happy to being finished after the second round. Would the Caps, the President's Trophy winner, and the legendary Montreal Canadiens be the first 2 teams to make a trade tonight at the draft? Darren?
We continue to follow those. Look forward to your reports throughout the night. Kekalainen is an interesting story with Columbus, in a position to take a Finn. Is that a good thing or a bad thing?
I don't think teams, the nationality of the GM really has much to do with it. He'll take the best player he can. But he's under a bit of pressure there after making a big deal last year. Seth Jones for Ryan Johansson. He's now got a hole to fill there, Sam, and I think he's got some good choices to make.
Oh, there's no question about it. And the Finn thing, whether he worries about that or not, if he really thinks that Puljujarvi is the best guy, he's got to take him there. I don't get that feeling. I think he moves down, but the challenge is he still wants to get that impact guy in the top 10. So he's only got a few teams that he can deal with.
Okay, Edmonton, Calgary, Vancouver. Who has the most pressure to make a move?
I think it's Edmonton. They have to get a defenseman. They need someone who can help them. New building, new start. They got to move to a guy who can help them now, not just a guy who can help them in a few years.
Buffalo Sabres were the star of the draft the last 2 years with the second round pick. Toronto picks first overall from Buffalo on Sportsnet. In Buffalo tonight, but it was a Saturday night at the end of April. The numbers tumbled down in the sequence of Toronto, draft lottery, and the first 3 picks of the 2016 NHL draft. That night, Austin Matthews watched from Europe, his future NHL home determined with the Toronto Maple Leafs. He is here tonight, ready to accept his calling. But so much discussion on the floor to go along with the picks that will be made tonight, those 30 selections. NHL teams have been calling each other on those phones on their tables, as well as connecting with each other in person. We expect a lot of trade activity tonight, and I wonder, could the 2016 NHL draft actually start with, we have a trade to report? NHL Commissioner Gary Bettman ready to kick it off.
Good evening and welcome. Thank you for that energetic welcome. Welcome to the First Niagara Center and the 2016 National Hockey League Draft. Our draft was conducted here in Buffalo in 1991 and 1998, and we're delighted to be back. In fact, the Buffalo Sabres and the city of Buffalo do such a great job of hosting our events. The NHL Prospect Scouting Combine, which was just recently held here, is coming back next year. So, on behalf of the entire NHL, I send thanks to Terry and Kim Pagula, the Sabres, the city of Buffalo, and yes, all the fans in attendance. Welcome to our viewers on NBC Sports Network, Rogers Sportsnet, and TVA, as well as our fans at draft parties across North America, and our listeners on SiriusXM NHL Radio and Sportsnet radio network. With tonight's much anticipated draft, with the World Cup of Hockey scheduled to begin in barely 90 days, and with our upcoming centennial celebration, along with this week's other events, this is a tremendously exciting time for our game and our league. So as we gather here tonight, this is an important night for our prospects, for their families, and our teams, which have spent countless hours scouting and preparing for this moment. So let's get started. The first selection of the 2016 National Hockey League Draft belongs to the Toronto Maple Leafs.
Well, I just thought I'd let them get that out of their system. The initial boos might go back 17 years to a certain toe in the crease in this building with Brett Hull, but the latter is just a geographical sense. They sit, they wait. Lou Lamoriello was not at the table last year when they selected Mitch Marner. There was some discussion on whether or not to take a forward or a defenseman a year ago. This one's easy.
Well, you know, it's a forward, that's for sure. And, you know, I would imagine there were probably people in the Toronto organization who loved Patrick Laine, who loved Jesse Puljujarvi. But center is a premium position in the National Hockey League. You don't hop on this bus, the Austin Matthews bus. When's the next bus come if you're Toronto?
And you can't acquire them just about any other way but drafting them. Right. Tyler Seguin was dealt maybe Joe Thornton, I don't know, maybe 15 years ago, but they just do not change teams very often in the prime of their careers. To get a center that can play on your organization for a decade plus, make everyone better, they have that opportunity tonight in Austin Matthews.
Sam, with the way Patrick Laine closed the gap, how important was what Austin Matthews did playing professionally in Europe to hold on to this position?
Well, there's no question that he proved that he could play against men. The bigger ice surface, so skating wasn't an issue. Proved that he could play a two-way game. Also played for a National Hockey League coach in Mark Crawford. So you know there were some teachings going on that were going to help him to adjust to come back to North America. I also liked what he did at the World Championships. Everyone was talking about Patrick Laine and how well he performed there, winning the MVP. But this guy was no slouch at the World Championships. He had every bit the right to be there and played extremely well for the U.S.
And went there because there's a bit of a risk if he went there and didn't perform well, but he embraced the opportunity, didn't shy away from the moment and perhaps dropping down if he doesn't play it well at the World Championships. He went, played excellent, and maybe raised his stock even more. I like what that says about his makeup.
And Mike, you know what it's like to play in Toronto better than anybody else on this panel. You know not everybody can play in Toronto. And I think the fact that this kid has a different background and he made a different decision. He stuck his neck out there and said, I'm going to be different. I'm not going to go to junior. I'm not going to go to college. I'm going to go to Europe. To me, means he's got the confidence that's going to allow him to survive in a difficult hockey market.
What I thought was pretty cool, when watching him at the NHL Draft Combine and just how candid he was very relaxed. He came into the interview room, he shook your hand, he looked you in the eye, he sat down, he wasn't slouching, he presented himself as a professional. In times past, we've seen that first overall pick be very calculated, be very tight to the vest. Austin Matthews wasn't like that whatsoever, and you have to wonder, hey, what's going on here? Let's go, guys.
It may have something to do with all that conversation that we've been watching for the last couple of hours as the teams arrived here at First Niagara Center. And from the outset, they were trading information. The Toronto Maple Leafs making their way towards the podium to welcome Austin Matthews to the National Hockey League. Brendan Shanahan, you notice, is up on the stage this year. A year ago, he sat back and let his management group take the spotlight. You've got Lou Lamoriello up there along with Mark Hunter, who handles the scouting. Gary Bettman will welcome them and ask Lou to do the thing.
For Toronto's first pick of the 2016 National Hockey League Draft, we're going to have our Director of Player Personnel make that selection, Mark Hunter.
Toronto proud to announce from Zurich, Men's League Switzerland, from U.S. program, Austin Matthews.
Americans have gone first overall before, but this is the first player that was raised in the Sun Belt.
Well, and that's what's interesting. Of the many interesting things about this young hockey player, aside from his skill and all his ability, he is representative of the next wave of American hockey players that are coming from Arizona, Colorado, Texas, California, places like that. There is a depth of talent in those cities, and why are they there? And Mike, you played down there. They're there because there's a lot of NHL players who stayed there and are training these young men.
And you talk about the poise he shows. Well, he's been around the Coyotes since he's about 14 years old. There's not that many NHLers that live down there in the summer, so come August, he'd be out there on the ice with all the NHL guys. He's been comfortable in their company for the better part of 4 or 5 years, which would help him when he goes over to Europe, which would help him when he goes to the draft interviews, and will help him when he gets on the ice next fall with the Toronto Maple Leafs. He's played against these guys. He knows how good they are, how good he is relative to them, and he's going to fit right in.
Well, it's pretty cool that you go back to when he was a youngster and his late Uncle Bill and his father Brian took him to Coyotes games. Now he's got the opportunity to skate with Shane Doan throughout the course of the summertime, and a really fascinating story. This must have been ordained for him. His sister Brianna was to be induced. They had to wait an hour. Brian said, hang on, we got to get Austin Matthews on the ice for his skating lesson, but we'll get back to the birth of Brianna shortly.
That's a brand new sweater. No wonder he's having trouble pulling it on. That's the new look that the Toronto Maple Leafs will model in their 100th year. Austin Matthews. The plan comes together. They finished last, they won the lottery, and they get the first overall pick.
And I think that's a big part of this too for Toronto Maple Leafs and their long-suffering fans. This represents a changing of the narrative. Until now, for many years, it's what can go wrong is going to go wrong. Well, that changes now. They won the lottery, they got the best player in the draft, and this gives them a new beginning in Toronto they've desperately been trying to put together.
Sometimes you need a little bit of luck. No matter what they did, finishing last, getting the most ping pong balls, they still only had a 20% chance of landing this pick. At some point, you have to be a little lucky, and they were lucky on that lottery night to get him.
Back to Gary Bettman.
We have a couple of trades to announce. Montreal trades Lars Eller to Washington in exchange for Washington's own second-round picks in 2017 and 2018. Eller to Washington for 2 seconds. We have a second trade. See, this is fun. Chicago trades Andrew Shaw to Montreal for Montreal's own second-round pick in 2016, the 39th pick, and Minnesota's second-round pick in 2016, number 45, which was previously acquired. Andrew Shaw to Montreal for 2 seconds. The next selection in the 2016 NHL draft, the second selection, belongs to the Winnipeg Jets.
Montreal ends up being the busiest team out of the gate.
Yeah, I mean, not blockbuster trades are the ones we're looking for, but significant NHLers. The picks are already starting to move. Teams are starting to jockey for position because, guys, don't forget, this is not just about the first round. This is about what comes after. A lot of seconds already moving, Sammy.
Well, that's the thing. Eller out, Shaw in when it comes to the Montreal Canadiens. Austin Matthews is with the Toronto Maple Leafs. He's with Jeff Merrick.
Well, Austin, first of all, congratulations. Are you relieved that it's over? This must have been a lot of pressure for you along the way.
You know what? It's a dream come true. It's pretty incredible. With my family here, some friends. It's just a dream come true.
You know, you've been preparing for this moment for quite a long time. I remember talking to someone last year in Phoenix who said at rookie camp there was Austin Matthews 1 year away from being selected, actually at rookie camp, just to watch. Why'd you go?
Yeah, you know, I had a couple of friends that were drafted. You know, Christian Fisher, Brendan Warren, Nick Merkley. So, you know, I went over to watch them, and you know, obviously show some support for them. So it was cool to you know, watch and see how they ran things.
Take us to a young Austin Matthews. And one of the remarkable things about your story is, you know, there's football in your family, there's baseball in your family, but there's not hockey. Take us to a young Austin Matthews going to Coyotes games, falling in love with the Zamboni, and falling in love with Daniel Briere.
Yeah, that's you know, exactly how you put it. That's how it happened. You know, I feel pretty fortunate the Coyotes moved there, you know, back in 1997. So, you know, I think if it wasn't for them, I wouldn't be here today.
Enjoy the circus, Austin.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Thanks.
Austin Matthews, Darren Millard.
The first of 11 selections for the Toronto Maple Leafs in the 2016 NHL draft. Battling with the Montreal Canadiens for the spotlight tonight. Needs for Toronto coming in. Top two defensemen, a franchise goaltender or prospect. They got that this week with the acquisition of Freddie Anderson, and then a franchise center. That's Austin Matthews. Back to Jeff.
Lou, thanks so much for joining us. First of all, congratulations. The first time you've made the first overall pick. What's going through Lou Lamoriello's mind right now?
Well, first of all, we're delighted. This young man, you know, his size and strength, as we all know, it's so rare that you can get a center iceman that plays, you know, the game 200 feet. And we feel that he's just going to fill a certain hole that we might have at this point.
Lou, I asked Brendan Shanahan in our pregame program, how many calls did your team get on the first overall pick? And he said, I'll defer to Lou on that. So I'll ask you the same question.
I think that no matter what transpired, if it did, it's all in the past. The most important thing is that Austin Matthews is a Toronto Maple Leaf right now.
Tell us a little bit about the skill set. Tell us a little bit about the package. I mean, Mark Hunter, one of the sharpest scouting minds in the entire hockey universe. What did him and your team see specifically in Austin Matthews that gave you great comfort and ease in saying we want Austin Matthews as our first line center?
Well, I think what we saw, first of all, and more importantly, hockey sense at the highest level. Certainly his size, that's something that's never going to leave him. His parents gave him that. And also his commitment to the game, both offensively and defensively. And I think he really showed that in the World Championships. You know, every level he's gone to, he's found a way to succeed, and you know, he's got a great future.
Lou, congratulations on this one.
Thank you.
Lou Lamoriello, you know, we think of Winston Churchill when he said, this is not the end, it's not the beginning of the end, but it might be the end of the beginning. I'm not sure that Churchill was talking about the Maple Leafs rebuild, but Darren, here we are.
I know one thing you've got Lou thinking. On a night that belongs to the opening round, and the Winnipeg Jets will pick second overall. It's second round picks that are flying around in the deals between Montreal, the Washington Capitals, and Montreal and the Chicago Blackhawks.
Chicago wasn't in the game until the 50th pick. I look at this as being the fourth pick in the draft. From about 25 to 45, you're going to get a similar group of players. Now, all of a sudden, Chicago, by acquiring those two picks, gets in the game at 39, 45, and 50. You have an extra bargaining chip there. Plus, you get into the game with guys that you would see earlier in your list.
More roster moving around for Chicago due to salary cap reasons. Andrew Shaw needs a new contract. He's going to get paid. He scored some big goals. He plays in the power plays, won some cups. So now Chicago, who probably would have preferred to keep Andrew Shaw around as opposed to giving some second rounders, has to make another move. Question how much he'll get. And he's a little bit like Brendan Gallagher Redux. Smaller guy, drags everyone in the fight in the game. And in Montreal, a team that seemed to roll over when things got really tough last year, maybe that injection of energy and attitude that Andrew Shaw brings to the game every night will help them.
Helps an identity.
And it helps, yeah, it helps an identity for Montreal, how they want to play, an emotional investment, which at times was lacking this year.
And you know, we talk about how hockey analytics are picking up a number of years. It's also involved now with draft picks. We talked about Tampa Bay and their draft sheet getting out. Teams make calculations. What's a second pick worth? What can I trade a second pick for? And what's the value of that? More and more now, that's a big calculation for teams when they decide to trade down or trade for picks.
There was no bigger winner outside the Toronto Maple Leafs remaining in the first overall position at the draft lottery than the Winnipeg Jets, who jumped up 4 spots. And there's that camera shot of Kevin Cheveldayoff smiling in our studio. He picks second overall.
On behalf of the Winnipeg Jets organization, I'd like to say thank you to the City of Buffalo and the Buffalo Sabres for being so gracious hosts this week. We'd also like to say hello to all our Jets fans that are watching at our official draft party back at the Met in Winnipeg. With the second pick in the 2016 NHL Draft, the Winnipeg Jets are proud to select from Tappara of the Finnish Elite League, Patrik Laine.
People are going to be surprised at how tall he is. They won't be taken aback, at least surprised, by the personality. This guy delivers, and his personality.
No question about the fun-loving guy. He's come out and said, yeah, I should be the #1 guy. We know now that that's not the case, but he shows that exuberance on the ice, and he's got that goal scorer's flair about him, a bit of confidence, bordering on arrogance, the ability to do good things on the ice with that one-time shot. And it's pretty interesting. You go back to his days as a youthful guy, shooting hundreds and hundreds of pucks a day. They used to set up soda cans in the top corners of the net to practice and improve his shot. So not only is it a hard shot with a lightning quick release, but it is deadly accurate, and immediately the Winnipeg Jets had a high goal-scoring player with Laine.
And I'd be one of the guys that I'm happy he has that attitude. I know maybe some concerns, he may be a little too flamboyant. Not for me. Great goal scorers, and he wants to become one of those. He has shown himself to be that prior to his NHL career. Need an arrogance. They need an attitude and a confidence, a self-belief, and he has plenty of it. But I'd rather have a guy wired that way than someone who I think I got to prop up if things aren't going well. I love his attitude. I love his belief, his arrogance, his cockiness.
Now, it has got him in trouble in the past. A couple of years ago, he was kicked off their team for the Ivan Hlinka. Why? We asked him this, why? And he said, well, I said I wanted to punch the coach in the face. And two of my teammates went and told the coach.
Yeah, they told on him.
Ran it out.
They ran him out. They booted him off the team. So it does get him in trouble. But he's a focused young man, and sometimes his attitude might belie that a little bit. He's trained with NHL players, Rasmus Ristolainen, Lauri Korpikoski, so he knows what it takes to play in this league. I think he'll be ready to go next fall.
You know, and as a matter of fact, guys, he is an absolute media darling in Finland as well. When he took his driver's license test this year in Finland, the public broadcaster, YLE, was there filming his last driving lesson. How we felt about Connor McDavid last year, that's how Finland feels about Patrik Laine.
I still can't get over the fact that he did that interview on the draft lottery night, lying down in bed.
It's very late over there.
It 4 in the morning. Still,
you know what the next one is? Next time he'll be standing up. You'll be lying in bed.
But I said, what was it? Just a fluke, or I said no. I want to be myself, and that's the way I did it. And I talked to Jarmo Kekalainen about it. I said, Finnish guy, what do you think? He's like, I suggest he doesn't do that again.
But
here is Patrik Laine.
Patrick, nice to see you. Nice to see you standing for an interview on Sportsnet. That's from our host, Darren Millard. First of all, congratulations. You're a Winnipeg Jet now. Was there ever any doubt in your mind that you would be wearing the same jersey or a similar jersey to that of Teemu Selanne?
Yeah, I'm just so happy that they selected me, and it's a huge honor to be part of their organization now. And before this moment, you never know what's gonna happen. So I wasn't expecting anything. I would be happy anyway, but I'm super happy with the jersey on now.
You're a very confident young man. We've spoken to you a couple of times, and that shines through. Did Toronto make a mistake?
I'm not gonna say anything about that. They didn't take me, so that's fine, and I'm just super happy to be part of Winnipeg now.
And congratulations, the Winnipeg Jets have another Finnish sniper. Yeah. Best of luck with the Jets.
Yeah, thank you.
Patrik Laine, Darren.
Oh, referring perhaps to Teemu Selanne and his rookie performance with the Winnipeg Jets. And when you look at Patrik Laine's goal production and what he's been able to do at multiple levels, it's extremely consistent. Here's the general manager, Kevin Cheveldayoff, with Jeff.
Kevin, how long does it take to get the smile off your face? The Winnipeg Jets have another Finnish sniper.
Well, from the moment that we were fortunate to win the draft lottery, you know, again, we were on board with making this pick, and it was an exciting time. And hard to control the emotions, but it's great to have it finally in the books.
You know, the last 48 hours here in Buffalo, there's been a lot of trade talk, a lot of trade chatter, a lot of trade rumors, many offers for number 2.
You know, we did receive some very late, some very serious, very late offers, but they were quickly, you know, put to bed for us because, you know, again, you don't get this opportunity to pick a player like Patrick very often, and again, we're very excited to be able to do it.
You know, we focus so much on his release, and he already has a world-class NHL shot. What else is there about his game? But I can't believe you take him number 2 just because of the shot.
No, you know, there's a maturity to his game playing in the Finnish Elite League. You know, watching him throughout the year and the way that he played in the playoffs and you know, the type of game that he played when the game was on the line. Watching him in the World Championships, again, there's that maturity to his game that you know, that comes with only special players.
Exciting player. I can't wait to see him in Manitoba. Congratulations.
Thanks very much.
Kevin Shevel, day off. Darren.
Thank you very much. Now we move on to number 3. The Winnipeg Jets and the Toronto Maple Leafs have put this plan according to what was predicted. Jarmo Kekalainen, as the general manager of the Columbus Blue Jackets, told me he almost puts more pressure on the Finns because he's a Finnish general manager in the NHL to impress him, to make him make that selection. Jesse Puljujarvi falls into that category.
Well, there's no question, but we just got the sense during the course of that interview that he wasn't overwhelmed with what Puljujarvi was bringing to the table. And I thought for sure that this pick was going to be moved. I mean, who knows what happens now? Obviously, Puljujarvi is the guy who's still sitting there. He's the guy that just about every prognosticator said would be the 3rd player picked. We go back to the start of the midway point of where all this draft talk started, and it was a top 3. I really felt differently that it would have been separated to a top 2, and that 3 through 5 might be jumbled up a little bit. So we'll see what happens here with this pick.
And the one thing we do know that after losing Ryan Johansson, they have a hole down the middle. They may want to fill at some point.
Thank you very much to the city of Buffalo and the Buffalo Sabres organization. A special hello to our fans at Nationwide Arena in Columbus. It's been a tough day for the Blue Jackets family in Columbus. Today we lost one of our owners. Our owner, Mr. John Wolfe, was a giant in the city of Columbus and a giant supporter of the Columbus Blue Jackets organization. On behalf of our majority, John P. McConnell, and the Blue Jackets family, we send our condolences to Mr. Wolfe's wife, Anne, and to their family. Great people, and thank you, Mr. Wolfe. Rest in peace. Thank you. Now with our pick, we would like to call up our head amateur scout, Ville Siren.
Columbus Blue Jackets are proud to select from Cape Breton Screaming Eagles, Pierre-Luc Dubois.
Well, that's different.
Well, I don't want to toot your horn, but Sammy, who was the only one who had Pierre-Luc Dubois at number 3 in their mock draft?
It was me. I mean, not to say I told you so, but I told you so. Well, first of all, I thought the pick was going to be traded, and I thought Pierre-Luc Dubois was going to be one of those targeted guys. And in order to get that guy, you had to go all the way to 3 to guarantee it. Now, when a trade didn't happen, the fact that we talked to Jarmo Kekalainen at the Combine just never got the sense that he liked Puljujarvi. The second thing is, when you look at what Pierre-Luc Dubois, midway through the season, he moved from the wing to center. Everyone talks about having size down the ice. He took about 800 draws, was about 50%, and the most pensive thing I heard him say was, I want to play center like I wanted my centerman to play when I played wing. So he has a great understanding for the game. Now you look about adding size at center, a 200-foot player. It's not quite Austin Matthews in what you're going to get production-wise, but the fact that you're going to get a big guy with speed who can score and distribute the puck and play that 200-foot game, you get all that in Dubois.
What an incredible move from the start of the year in the draft rankings to 3rd overall.
And it's his birthday today. What a nice birthday present for him. You know, and it was a big move, almost unprecedented. He went from number 7 in the midterm by Central Scouting to number 1.
That's just in North America.
Right, and that's in North. So they were seeing a massive improvement. And a big part, this guy has physically matured. He's gained 40 pounds and 2 inches since he went into the Quebec League. He's a big, big man.
Damien, I think you touched on it. When they traded Ryan Johansson for Seth Jones, they lost their #1 center. They lost their big 6'4" guy that can play both ends of the ice. They looked to replace him with Pierre-Luc Dubois, a guy who just playing center, as you mentioned, for the first time this year and basically ended his career.
What was pretty cool is that he played wing, so he played with a couple of high-end guys. And Svechnikov, first round in Detroit last year, Max Lazarev, a really skilled guy, and then he adjusted to playing with other guys at center ice.
Look at those numbers. Some great company, and now he's a top 3 pick.
I tell you what, he looks a little bit like Vinny LeCavalier, who was picked high right in this building 18 years ago.
The man that made the surprise selection based on the rankings is with Jeff Merrick.
Yes, the early candidate for the best oohs and ahs here at First Niagara Place in Buffalo, Jarmo Kekalainen, GM of the Columbus Blue Jackets. We saw you talking to just about every general manager on the floor about the #3 overall pick. Why did you not let go of it?
Well, the price wasn't right. I guess that's the best way to put it. And we were just finding out what the bid was for the 3rd overall. We were never going to back far if we were going to do that. And at the end of the day, the deal didn't happen, and this was the guy that we had 3rd on our list.
You know, it's interesting as well. He played half the season as a winger, second half of the season as a centerman. I don't think he's ever played center before in his life, maybe sparingly here and there. Does the general manager see Pierre-Luc Dubois as a winger or as a centerman with the organization?
I see him as a very versatile forward, has great potential to play at center for us. He enjoys playing center. He played the second half on center, as you said. He was very successful at it. I think he played his best hockey at center. He's big, he's strong, he's very smart. So we think he has all those attributes to be a very good center in the National Hockey League for many years to come.
Quickly, can he step in next year?
Well, that remains to be seen, obviously, but I always say this, that it's a marathon, it's not a sprint, so that's not a real big criteria for us. We just want a player at 3 who we think has the best career in the NHL at that point.
Congratulations, Jarmo.
Thank you very much.
Elliot Friedman.
Jeff, earlier on tonight, the Montreal Canadiens making the first big news of this draft by trading Lars Eller to Washington and then acquiring Andrew Shaw from the Chicago Blackhawks. Shaw's agent is Pat Brisson. Shaw, the player, is a restricted free agent, but he says he's confident he's going to get something done with the Canadiens quickly, and we're hearing it's going to be long term, maybe 5-6 years. So that's the talk right now, and it looks like we'll get an announcement in the next little while. Darren?
Thank you. Pierre-Luc Dubois takes over from Jesse Puljujarvi, who is part of that group of 3 players that could step in right away. You got to think that the Columbus Blue Jackets are leaning towards that. Back to Jeff.
First of all, Pierre-Luc Dubois, congratulations. Second of all, happy birthday. Best birthday present you ever received?
Oh, for sure, yeah.
We just talked to Jarmo Kekalainen a second ago, and he said that he sees you more as a centerman than as a winger. He said you were outstanding, and we all saw you would generally concur. You see yourself as a center?
Yeah, I think so. I started playing after Christmas, so it was a new position to me, but I think in the long run I have the skill set to play center in the NHL.
Last night when you went to bed, did you think you were going 3rd overall?
I wasn't thinking about anything really, I'm not going to lie. We didn't think about the draft too much in the past couple of days, so it was a surprise this morning, but I was really happy.
When you're walking up on stage, who are you thinking of? I mean, this is a hockey family. Your father was drafted by the Quebec Nordiques. I know Mom's made a lot of sacrifices as well. Your dad coaches Rimouski. He's coached against you. What's going through your mind walking up those stairs?
I was just thinking about the sacrifices my parents made throughout my entire career until now, and my mom doesn't know a lot about hockey, but she goes to the games. She doesn't like hockey, but she comes to see me. She comes to see me play. It's all of them really right now.
Blow out the candles. You're a Blue Jacket. Congratulations.
Thank you very much.
Pierre-Luc Dubois of the Columbus Blue Jackets. Darren.
His dad was playing in the German Elite League the first time he started playing hockey, and he went out there with the coaches, and Pierre started getting yelled at. He didn't understand German, and his dad had to come over and tell the coach, but that's why he wasn't following the drills.
And I said, how did you react? He said, I cried because he was being yelled at in German. But so he's got a little bit of a different background. His mother's from Atlanta. Met his father when his father was playing for the Atlanta Knights of the International Hockey League as run around. So he's got a bit of a different background, as do many of these young men.
So as we watch the Edmonton Oilers take to the podium for the 4th overall selection, Dubois moves to 3, all predicated on the switch to center?
Yeah, I mean, when in doubt, center is always more valuable than wing. And if you can get a guy at that size who can play defensively,
on behalf
and
of
he
the
showed
Edmonton
himself he's able
Oilers,
to.
we'd like to thank the city of Buffalo for its great hospitality. Thank you. And with the 4th selection in the 2016 entry draft from Karpat in Finland, Jesse Puljujarvi.
When he wasn't selected 3rd, immediate thought is this a situation where start falling?
No, I think it's more Edmonton Oilers like, yes, that's great, because they love what this guy can do, and as they should. So I don't think it was necessarily worried about how low he'll go. It's more opportunity for the Oilers that they pounced on, getting maybe the most complete winger in the draft.
Well, it really tests the mettle. Every NHL team you talk to, you say, we have to take the best player available. But you look at the positional needs of Edmonton, and they need a defenseman. Mike, you've talked about it. They need a guy who can step in and play defense right away. Is Sergachev that guy? Maybe not necessarily, but you get into the position where Puljujarvi falls to you at number 4, and you say, oh yeah, he's the best player available. We're taking him. Good on Chiarelli. That adds to your asset group at forward, and you might be able to move another forward now. We've heard Everly, we've heard Brian Nugent, Draisaitl. Maybe one of those guys now moves.
When you think about what Edmonton's putting together, it's they can skate and they have speed.
Right.
He matched that.
And maybe when it came down to that decision, because it looks as though their decision was between Jesse Puljujarvi and Matthew Tkachuk, the skating of Puljujarvi may have been the factor that really put him over the top, because he is a brilliant skater, probably as good a skater as there is in this draft. And you know what? He's versatile as well. He kind of plays like a center as well, but right now he's a winger. They've got centers, size, speed on the wing. People in Edmonton have got to be thrilled.
A big guy who can skate. When I start thinking about Jesse Puljujarvi and who he reminds me of in the NHL, I look to Winnipeg, a guy like Blake Wheeler, a big guy, excellent skater, loves to pass and set people up, can really drive offense from the wing, and not many players can do that. More wingers are finishers as opposed to creators, but I think Puljujarvi can be that, much like Blake Wheeler is for the Winnipeg Jets.
Well, he was kind of the darling of the age group for the Finns. You go back to a game called Bandy that they play in Scandinavia, and you talk about what Puljujarvi was able to do there and do wonderful things, beating Ole Juolevi, scoring a bunch of goals in the prelim game, and then, of course, in a championship game. And you talk about those comparisons to Wheeler. I mean, look at the size, the shooting ability, the ability to come down the wing, either shoot off the rush or drive the net. Puljujarvi brings all of those things to the table.
Also a little willingness to play defense as a winger, which is big as more forward lines are interchangeable parts. It's not so much centerman plays low, it's first guy back plays low. If the first guy back is Puljujarvi, he's willing to do it.
And as we said, they all have a little bit of a different background. What's his background? The game of bandy, which I can't tell you anything about. I believe Mike Johnson was well trained in that, and that's how he got to the NHL.
Played on about a CFL-sized rink, speed skating style skates, and they skate and skate and skate. No stopping and starting, but they can fly out there, and maybe of that bit of that background you can see in his stride as when he gets going, his top speed is something.
Ole Juolevi is going to be drafted later in this first round, a defenseman from the London Knights. He's got a great bandy story about Puljujarvi, who's with Jeff Merrick.
Thank you very much, Darren. Alongside Jesse Puljujarvi, when we see a big Finnish skater that can score and fly down the wing, we naturally think of Jari Kurri. First off, congratulations on becoming an Oiler. Second of all, have you met Jari Kurri before? Ever any conversations with Jari Kurri? Have you ever met Jari Kurri before?
No.
Not at all?
No.
Well, Edmonton's about to get another Finnish sniper down the wing along the likes of Jari Kurri. I know you're working on your English, and it is getting better. What outside of working on your English do you think you still need to work on in the game of hockey to get to the NHL?
Like that summer, more power, and when NHL starting, I'm ready to play NHL.
And you told us at the Combine you don't have a favorite hockey player. Is that true?
Yeah, that's true.
You're about to become the favorite hockey player of a lot of Edmonton Oilers fans. Enjoy Edmonton and enjoy Connor McDavid. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Jesse Puljujarvi of the Oilers. Darren.
Drafted in 2016, he will now research 2017, well, at least the number 17 that will hang in Rogers Place. Look at this. And he's a player that has been able to produce, although passed a little bit by Patrick Laine. Back to Jeff.
Darren, thanks very much. A surprise to some here, a surprise that Puljujarvi fell to you at 4, Peter?
Well, I think all the published lists had him in a certain spot, so everyone kind of expected him to go at that spot. But you have to prepare. We were the next pick. We had a little flurry of activity prior to that. Everyone's trying to jockey for positions. A little surprising, but anything can happen, and we felt we were prepared for it.
Ever close to moving the pick?
Like the last couple of days, we've had a lot of discussions. I would say no, not really that close.
Well, listen, congratulations again.
Thank you. Now the Vancouver Canucks check in at number 5. A team that's going through a process right now, and Jim Benning with his second draft. What are they looking for right now? What do they need the most? Because there's needs up front and there's needs on the blue line.
They need both. I mean, they really do. There's no area. Maybe their goaltender and Jakob Markstrom they feel comfortable with going forward, but they need both departments. You have Matthew Tkachuk obviously still there, some speed, but they need help with defense. I mean, Edler's getting older. Hamhuis is gone. They have Tanev. They have young Hutton. So if their defense is going to go here, maybe it's the spot because there's a desperate need for it in Vancouver.
Well, you're going to get your pick of the litter. We haven't seen a defenseman go off the board yet. So if that's what the Vancouver Canucks are picking, they're truly going to get the best defenseman that they believe is available in this draft.
Well, and who is the best defenseman? Is it Mikhail Sergachev or the Windsor Spitfires? Is it Ole Juolevi? But boy, I'll tell you, you're sitting there staring at Matthew Tkachuk, and you're not going to take him. It's a tricky pick for Jim Benning.
We would like to thank the City of Buffalo for their wonderful hospitality this week. We would also like to welcome our fans at our draft party at Rogers Arena. With the 5th selection, Vancouver select from the London Knights, Ole Juolevi.
And a second ripple through First Niagara Center. As Matthew Tkachuk is passed over for Ole Juolevi, who has a lot going for him. In fact, fit in so well coming over from Finland with the London Knights in his first year in North America.
And I think where it really made his mark this year, this fine young defenseman, was at the World Junior Hockey Championship. He starred, he moved the puck. The poise of this player really made him jump out. People knew he was a good prospect, obviously, and he played well with the London Knights, Sam, but the way he played at the World Juniors really caught everyone's attention.
Now we go back to the prospects game. Jim Benning saying, hey, we need to focus on a defense at this spot. They kept their 5 pick. He was true to his word there. They picked the defenseman in Juolevi. You go back to when he was 14 years old, though, and he started to realize that he might be able to make a career out of this thing. He gets drafted in the import draft by the London Knights. Ole Mata, a former London Knight, personal friends. They sit down in London and have dinner, and Ole Mata says, hey, here's what you expect from Nylander. Go out there, enjoy yourself. If you have any questions, issues, concerns, I'm a text message away. He's gone in there and done almost the exact same thing that Ole Mata did when he went to the London Knights. A first-round pick right here. Finished defenseman, smooth as silk, and maybe a bit more of a vanilla game than what Sergachev brings to the table, but there's more safety in the vanilla game than what you would see in taking a risk on what you might think is more upside with Sergachev.
He's a new age NHL defender. Skates really well, tremendous first pass, can jump up in the rush. Not the biggest guy, even though he's tall. He still has a little time to fill out, 185, 190 pounds, but doesn't play incredibly physical, plays through the sticks, tries to get the puck, and is at his best when he has it. And that's how teams want to play now. You don't want to just run over guys and shoot it away. It's about taking the puck away and then making that next pass. That's what Ole Juolevi can do.
A lot of comparisons, guys, as you mentioned, to Ole Mata, former London Knight, now, of course, with the Pittsburgh Penguins Stanley Cup champions. He was a little bit slight to start off the season. That was a concern. Would he be strong enough? He added 9 pounds of lean muscle to his frame, all in the second half of the season, now just starting to fill in his body. Ole Juolevi joins us right now. We're just mentioning the second half of the season, you really started to put on the lean muscle mass. What's been the difference? It seems as if now you're starting to really fill out your body.
Yeah, of course. I think it takes some time, and all the people they are giving the mass different time. And when I was young, I didn't get a lot of mass, but like maybe now when I'm a little bit older, I'm getting more and more. And like But yeah, it's not the biggest thing. You have to be also good on the ice, but like, of course it helps you.
Internationally, and now here at the draft, it's become the year of the Finn. What's happened with this program that's made it so successful? Laine, Puljujarvi, Juolevi, all going early in the draft.
Yeah, I don't know. It's just like the individual coaching probably, and like what we do when we are young, and we're all the time playing like street hockey and go to bond hockey playing, and I don't know. It's just like great individuals right now coming, and it's a great thing for Finland.
The Vancouver Canucks, known for a pair of Swedes, are soon going to be known for a big Finn. Congratulations, Ole.
Thank you so much.
Ole Juolevi of the Vancouver Canucks. Darren.
And one of the highest drafted Finnish defensemen ever. I want to complete the story with the Bandy and Puljujarvi. They've matched up against each other when they were younger. He had to shadow Puljujarvi. They lost 10-2. Puljujarvi had 8 goals. He said it was a learning experience. Well, he's closed the gap now as they go 4-5. Jeff.
Here with Jim Benning, General Manager of the Vancouver Canucks. Going back to the top prospects game, you were quite candid on our program in one of the intermissions. You said, it's about time we started to restock with defensemen. True to your word, what do you like about the Finnish defender from London?
Well, we love his hockey sense, his ability to read the play defensively, his ability to handle the puck and get it up ice fast. He had an outstanding year, whether it be at the World Junior, helping his team win the Memorial Cup. So it's a very exciting day for us. We're very happy to have him.
A couple of high-end defensemen in this draft as well. And we think of Sergachev from Windsor, we think of Chychrun from Sarnia, we think of McAvoy from BU. What distinguished Juolevi, though, amongst all of those peers?
Well, like I said, we love his hockey sense, his ability to figure out the play defensively in his own end, use his stick, use good positioning. And, he played on a very offensive team in London this year. His ability to get the puck and move it up ice to the forwards fast, I think he'll fit into what we're trying to do in Vancouver.
It's a good-looking pick. Congratulations, Jim.
Thank you.
Jim Benning, General Manager, Vancouver Canucks. Darren.
Watching the Edmonton Oilers, they jumped on Puljujarvi, who slipped down from number 3 to 4. Now it's the Calgary Flames at 6. Matthew Tkachuk's available.
We talked about how excited the Winnipeg Jets were the way the draft lottery went. I think the Calgary Flames and GM Brad Treliving is going, holy smokes, this has gone better than we thought. To get Matthew Tkachuk exactly the kind of power forward they want to get is exciting.
Well, who do they want to play? Saying? They want to play someone with Johnny Gaudreau and Sean Monahan. Yeah. Well, guess what? He just came from Christian Dvorak and Mitch Marner. Loves playing with guys with the puck. Yep. Can make plays in tight down around the net where that line does most of their work. He's got a little bit of attitude and grit to his game.
The one element they really wanted, and they get it.
And it fell right down to their lap. If it's Matthew Tkachuk here, it is a perfect fit, and Calgary was thinking about moving down to get a player like him.
Here he is. There's so much talk about them jumping up to make sure that they got the player that they absolutely wanted, and it works out. Well, if he's available, and he is. Brad Treliving, ready to make the pick, 6th overall for the Calgary Flames.
First of all, I'd just like to thank this city of Buffalo and the Buffalo Sabres for a great week of the hospitality. Congratulations to Jimmy Rutherford and the Pittsburgh Penguins on their Stanley Cup championship. And a special hello to the great hockey fans of Calgary at our draft party at the Shark Club South. It's with great pleasure that we announce our 2016 first-round pick from the Memorial Cup champion London Knights, Matthew Tkachuk.
Slides out of the top 5 by 1.
But he slides in a really good spot. A really good fit for his kind of player, and a lot of question marks on whether Matthew Tkachuk could play in the NHL next year. If he gets paired up on that kind of line, where he likely is getting slotted on the depth chart going forward, he'll have a good chance.
When you look at Stockton in the American Hockey League, with what the Calgary Flames have right now, there is no question that they needed to address depth of skill at the forward position. You do that instantly with Matthew Tkachuk, and I really think that they were helped out with Juolevi going ahead, because that's the person that I felt that they were honed in on. But if we go back to last year, Oliver Shillington was a defenseman they took really late at 60th. They got Rasmus Anderson in the second round at 32nd pick. So you have to think that they were set up defensively for a couple of years. What did they need to do? Add that forward depth, the skill. Matthew Tkachuk does that in spades. He puts some concerns about his boots, but you know what? If there's anything you could fix in the game these days, it's go to personal skills.
Not about his brain,
get
though.
it done.
Yeah. Not about his brain.
And you know what? And this begins the second big macro story of this draft. The first was 3 Finns going in the first 5 pick. What a year for the Finland as a hockey-playing country. This is now the beginning of the second story, major story, and that is he is the first player from St. Louis of a number of players from the St. Louis minor hockey system that are going to go high in this draft. There were a number of NHL players, Al McGinnis, Jeff Brown, they stayed behind in St. Louis and they taught a bunch of these young guys, and we're now going to see a bunch of them go in order, and Matthew Tkachuk is certainly the #1 guy to go, but there's some terrific players coming out of St. Louis. Who would have thought it when they awarded that team, or that city a franchise back in 1967?
And I look at Matthew Tkachuk, and who does he remind me of when I think about the NHL? I think of Andrew Ladd, a guy who's got a good release, really good hands in and around the net, understands how to use his body below the hash marks to create offense, nice little plays in tight spaces, not the most gifted of skater, but when he plays the game, you don't look at him and say, man, he looks slow out there. He just knows how to move around the ice to create offense. I think that's a pretty fair comparison. And if he turns out anything like Andrew Ladd, it's a steal for the Calgary Flames.
Well, let's get back to the skating for a minute. His most recent viewings were with a bad ankle. You go back to Game 3 of the OHL Championship against the Niagara Ice Dogs. He scored the first goal of the game, missed about a period, came back, completed the hat trick. But from that point on, he wasn't feeling right, even with 8 days off. Between them sweeping Niagara out of the playoffs and going to the MasterCard Memorial Cup, he still didn't cure what was ailing him in that ankle. It should be all good now.
1990, Dad went 19th to Winnipeg.
I got you, Dad. I got you.
He goes 6th overall to Calgary. Jeff?
Alongside Brad Treliving, at what point this season did you look at Matthew Tkachuk, Brad, and say there's someone that can really complement our organization?
Well, you know, it's really been 2 years. We've even watched him, you know, last year in the U.S. program. You know, he just brings all those combination of grit and skill, ability to just help you win. And then you look at the team that he was on this year, the run that they had, capping it off with the overtime winning goal in the Memorial Cup. Pretty excited to get him.
You know, two schools of thought. One would say, well, he played with Christian Dubois, second rounder Arizona, Mitch Marner, first rounder the Toronto Maple Leafs. Of course he's going to do well, but it's not easy playing with elite level players. When you see him as a rookie in the OHL fitting seamlessly onto that top line, what goes through your mind?
Well, you're right. Those are great players that he played with, and you even go back a year prior and playing with Austin Matthews at the U.S. program. But one of the things that I think is people don't realize with Matthews how smart he is. I think he's got elite hockey sense. His ability to play with top players, as you said, is not an easy thing to do. He can think the game extremely well, goes to the hard areas to score, and then just does a lot of things to help you win. But it's great to play with those types of players, but you got to be able to think at their level, and he can.
Brad, congratulations. You got yourself a good young power forward right there.
Thank you very much.
Brad Treliving, GM Calgary Flames there.
All right, and we can now fill in the numbers side, Matt. And you look at the highest father-son combination to be drafted in the first round. Keith went through this at BC Place in 1990, and then all these years later, they sit side by side, and they went through this together as Matt dropped a couple of spots.
I love you so much. Congratulations.
Love you.
It's a beautiful sight alongside Matthew Tkachuk. You have, I believe, close to 100 people here, an entire section behind you, family and friends. And the story of you and your father is well told. I want to ask about your mother. True or false, she's the main reason why you fell in love with hockey?
She's definitely one of them. Everybody knows my dad played, and you know, a pro athlete, they're gone, especially hockey players, they're gone a lot and they're traveling a lot. And my mom got me out there in skates and brought me to the Coyotes and Pups skating at the ice then, and it's so special to finally get drafted and just, you know, have so many people here and the close family and friends.
Well, congratulations. You've gone from green to red. Looks good on you, Matthew Tkachuk.
Thanks, Jeff.
Congratulations. Matthew Tkachuk of the Calgary Flames there.
We should add, the first time he went skating with Mom and Chantel, he said he hated it. He's come around.
Well, and I think Mom is not done yet. There's another Tkachuk coming, by the way. His younger brother, Brady Tkachuk, is going to be a high pick in the 2018 draft. So whatever the Tkachuk family's doing, they're doing it very well. And again, coming through that St. Louis system, Keith Tkachuk has given a lot back to St. Louis.
And here come the Arizona Coyotes and John Chychrun, born in 1989. New general manager of the Arizona Coyotes, just turned 27. And he will make the first pick.
Thank you to the city of Buffalo for your hospitality. Quick hello to our great fans of the Gila River Arena for all your support. The Arizona Coyotes are pleased to select from the U.S. National Development Program, Clayton Keller.
Now, Chychrun, he's an analytic guy.
Yep.
So does this fit Clayton Keller jumping up a few spots from where he was ranked? Is that where that goes?
If you look at points, because he gets a lot of them. I mean, you don't have to dig too far to see how good this guy is. He is a dynamo. You know, if he was 2 inches taller, he'd be pushing right into that top 5, no problem, as he almost did anyways, going at 7. But he is an excellent skater, vision, hands, to play with great players. I love this pick for Phoenix, or for Arizona. This is where the league is going. This is the new age kind of player.
Well, it's fascinating to me because I look at their forward group that's up and coming, including Fisher, Dvorak, Perlini. They've got a lot of guys at the forward position. So partially analytics and partially just saying, hey, we're not worried about the size whatsoever. We get a guy who wants the puck on a stick in important parts of the game. We get a guy who plays with some bite in his game, bigger than what he's actually listed. But at 5'10", they were going to add to their forward depth in terms of their prospects. I'm a little bit surprised here with Keller going to this spot.
Yeah, it's an interesting one for sure. And, you know, I don't want to jump into who he's compared to, but I can tell you who is a junior player he compares to, Mitch Marner. A lot of people make that comparison. Marner led the London Knights to the Memorial Cup this year. Well, Clayton Keller is very much coveted by the Windsor Spitfires. So there is going to be a big arm wrestle between Boston and the Windsor Spitfires over this young man who will be a prominent story wherever he ends up playing his hockey next year.
Well, if Arizona goes out and signs him, that answers all questions that he will go to the Windsor Spitfires if he doesn't play in the National Hockey League. So they can really help out the Windsor Spitfires if they go ahead and sign him here. But this is a fascinating pick for me just based on how much skill they already have up front in the system.
So Domi's young. Dylan Strome was their first pick last year. Now Clayton Keller.
Declare Dvorak, who should make the Coyotes next year, one of the best young players that wasn't in the NHL this year. So they have a nice little collection going.
Yeah, you know, it's interesting. The Maple Leafs went very analytics heavy last year and took a lot of small players. Now Arizona's making that kind of move in that direction with their new young GM, and they've gone very small with a high pick.
You have to think the other element is the mirroring of what happens in the National Hockey League. You saw Pittsburgh, we're a copycat league. Pittsburgh won with speed, with puck possession, with size, and making plays in small areas on the ice. This guy does all of those things.
Arizona selects Clayton Keller at number 7. They will be back, providing they don't trade it away, at number 20. Second straight year, they have 2 picks inside the first round. Tim Murray, the Buffalo Sabres hometown guy, is next at number 8. As Austin Matthews, Patrick Laine, and Jesse Puljujarvi, the top 3 picks of the NHL opening round. First, Niagara Center awaiting the opening pick for the hometown Buffalo Sabres, but first to John Shannon on the floor.
You know, Darren, there's always an expectation the home team makes a splash. Lots of talk about Cam Fowler coming here. Lots of talk about Dmitry Kulikov possibly coming here because the Sabres need defensemen. But under no circumstances, Tim Murray told me about 10 minutes ago, under no circumstances was he moving the number 8 pick. He wants a prospect right now.
Sitting back, and there's one guy that loves taking it all in. It's Tim Murray. He told the local media this week, if anybody doesn't like who I take, I'll be out on Saturday night. You can come up and you can tell me yourself. He's very confident. He knows exactly what he wants. He's not one of those super polished guys that's going to just tell you the right thing and dance around your question. Right. He's front and up in your face honest.
Well, and I think he's got some interesting choices. I mean, he's got a young team. He has needs on defense with a young thing, but he's got a couple of really good young centers, Jack Eichel and Sam Reinhart. So you look for somebody who can play with those guys. So, you know, he's one of those young teams with a lot of needs. He could go either way on that.
I don't know. They got big stud Sergachev sitting there. They need defensive help, and they've needed it for a long time. And it seems like wingers that can score might be easier to come by than defensemen that can play 25. That's the debate they're having, but Sergachev might be able to step in sooner rather than later.
Yeah, because all the trade talk they hear connected to the Buffalo Sabres
to defense
revolves around defense.
Yes, because they need it badly. So that guy who's probably the most ready of the defenseman to step in is out there.
Elliot Friedman.
Yeah, Darren, we got some movement here. John Shannon talking today earlier on Twitter that the Calgary Flames were not leaving here without a goalie, and it looks like they've got one. Hasn't been announced yet, but they're going to be acquiring Brian Elliott from the St. Louis Blues. I'm not exactly sure of the return. Oh, wait, I got it. It's the 35th overall pick in this draft. So 5th in the second round tomorrow. That was what St. Louis wanted, that first pick of Calgary's 3 in the second round, and I'm hearing that will be at the 35th pick of the St. Louis Blues for Brian Elliott. Darren?
Follow up that in just a moment. Tim Murray. The fewest words Tim Murray said at the podium is 4 introducing a pick. That was back in 2014. I'm told he's after his own record. I don't know how more efficient he can be.
Buffalo selects Alex Nylander.
4 at 8. Wow. Another second-generation player.
Well, and as we talked about, he had a choice. He had McLeod, Sergachev sitting there. Could go with defense. Or do I get a winger who can play with one of my 2 stud centers? And he went with the winger, and it's a very interesting choice. What a hockey family, the Nylanders. And William, of course, a prospect in Toronto. The dad, Michael, played in the NHL, and now Alexander.
There's a really interesting thing going on here with Alexander Nylander. When he came over to play for Mississauga, he came over on a loan from his club team there. So what does that mean? Well, that gives him plenty of options next year. Yes, he can go back to Mississauga. Yes, he can go back to Sweden. We're hearing rumors that he wants to go to the American Hockey League and play. This has happened a couple of years ago with Julius Honka, who was selected out of the Swift Current Broncos, was on loan from his Finnish club to Swift Current, and as a result of that made him eligible to play in the American Hockey League. So the situation presents itself now for him to have all of those options, and who knows, maybe he ends up playing here with the Buffalo Sabres.
Well, that's exactly what you want, though. You want options. Where will he develop the best? And whether it's back in junior, whether it's over in Europe, whether it's in the minors, or potentially in the NHL, but this family, I see Michael Nylander around our hotel. He looks like he could play tomorrow if he wanted to, and he might with him next year.
Well, it was an unusual situation in Mississauga this year. He ended up playing on a line much of the year with Michael McLeod and Nathan Bastian, who also might be a first-round pick. You don't usually see those high draft eligible players playing all together, and as a line, they weren't as good as the trio in London, but they were pretty darn good, and Nylander just got better and better as the year went along.
You wonder who he plays like? Well, you don't have to go very far down the family tree to say, yeah, I got my dad, Michael, who played for a long time, who had great hands, vision, strong skater, good finish around the net, maybe a bit of a pass-first guy. Long career, excellent career, a variety of stops. And, of course, his older brother, William, who spent time with the Toronto Marlies and the Toronto Maple Leafs last year, also excellent.
Just want to follow up. You suggested or threw it out there that Michael Nylander could come back and play, the dad?
Well, they've played one game together already professionally in Sweden going back to 2 years ago, and now you look at what kind of shape he's in. He was on the ice as an assistant coach last year.
I asked him flat out, are you playing with all 3 of them next year? And he said,
Jeff, any insight that we can get here?
Alongside Alex Nylander here, and Alex, before I ask you about the people that are cheering here and chanting your name behind us, I want to ask you about your equipment. It may sound frivolous, but people that have seen you play, you look smaller than you are because your equipment is so form-fitting. Your shin pads aren't much bigger than your shins are. Why do you wear such tight equipment?
I don't know. I just always like wearing like small things that fit perfectly. So I just got a little form to my body, and I don't know. I just always liked it that way.
How does it feel to be selected here in Buffalo with all these fans cheering for you?
It feels unbelievable. Best moment of my life. Big dream come true.
Preference where you play next year? North America, Sweden, some speculation?
Goal is to make NHL, play for Buffalo Sabres.
Alexander Nylander, the Buffalo Sabres, Darren.
It might be something that is a testament to us, but right in the middle of our conversation with him at the draft combine, he let out one of the biggest yawns I've ever witnessed. So,
hey, what you've got
he's a
now,
cool customer.
What you've got now here in Buffalo, Toronto, you've got Austin Matthews against Jack Eichel, and you're going to have Alexander Nylander. If you're hoping for the Toronto-Buffalo rivalry to ever get going, boy, you've got some elements now.
And you've got some pieces for the Buffalo Sabres. You're starting to put together a pretty dynamic offense.
Yeah, I really like where they're going. I mean, you talk about Ristolainen on the back end. You talk about Eichel up front. Unbelievable. Sam Reinhart really starting to come into his own now. This guy's going to add so much skill down the wing with his speed, ability to cut to the net, shoots the puck extremely well. So he just adds to that forward group. And he's got a couple of guys that can get him the puck.
You just talked about the copycat nature of the NHL. Pittsburgh won with 3 scoring lines. You're forgetting about Ryan O'Reilly, also a center for the Buffalo Sabres. If they want to play Sam Reinhart in the middle, now you have 3 centermen that can absolutely distribute and will need finishers and guys to play with them. And so they have another one here, Alexander.
Here's the reaction to the pick outside First Niagara Center as they watch Alexander Nylander, selected by the hometown Buffalo Sabres, 8th overall. There's a reaction, I promise. and Tim Murray, very efficient again.
Yeah,
tied the record.
One of the really impressive things with Alexander Nylander this year was he went to the World Juniors, and his brother in their opening game suffered a concussion, was knocked out of the tournament. That was a real challenge. They were really looking forward to playing together. Well, Alexander didn't sort of fall off and step into the background. He ended up playing a primary role for that team, even though his older brother there. I think a lot of teams look at that. Okay, that's impressive.
So Buffalo goes with a forward in the draft, probably elect to pursue the trade route for a defenseman. Here's Montreal at 9.
The Penguins for their Stanley Cup championship. Aussi saluer tous nos partisans des Canadiens de Montréal à travers le monde entier. Trevor Timmins is going to make the selection with our first pick.
With the 9th pick, Montreal selects from the OHL Windsor Spitfires, Mikhail Sergachev.
All the talk surrounding the Montreal Canadiens over the last 48 hours has revolved around defense. And that was PK Subban and teams calling about the former Norris Trophy winners' availability. And in the first pick, number 9 overall for the Canadiens, they address their blue line.
Well, I think this is a marvelous pick. Yes, there's a little bit of risk to the pick. Worried about him going back to playing the KHL. That seems to be a worry of a lot of National Hockey League teams.
He really embraced coming over here, though, at Windsor. He embraced the language, he embraced the boys, and you can now, his interviews are pretty dynamic and charismatic for a guy who's just picking up the language. So hopefully that could.
You know what, guys? He has embraced it, but around November, he got a little bit homesick. He told his head coach, Rocky Thompson, quote, "I'm a little empty." Rocky said, listen, remember why you love the game. Remember why you played the game. It was a game against Mississauga, November 13th. He said, don't worry about structure. Don't worry about form. Just go out and play. Don't worry about consequences at all. The result, 6 shots on goal. 1 goal, 3 assists, 4 points, hit a crossbar as well in that game. And from there, the sky was the limit all season long for Mikhail Sergachev. Darren?
Comes from a little town in Russia, Nizhnekamsk, Russia, and same hometown as Damir Sharityanov of Owen Sound, and also the Leaf prospect Renat Valiev. So there are some players that have come out of this town But the unusual thing about Sergachev, who's a delightful young man, by the way, didn't start playing the game until he was 9 years old. That's very late for a guy to end up at this level.
Talk about the language issue here. A guy that won the OHL's Best Defenseman Award, and at their award ceremony, stepped up to the podium, accepted the award, and then absolutely owned the room.
Yeah. Well, what happened was he came over partially because Daniel Verte was a teammate with him in Windsor. When Verte got traded away to North Bay, he didn't have that Russian thing going on. He learned the language in 2 months and speaks as well as anyone right now.
To the podium.
We have a trade. St. Louis trades Brian Elliott to Calgary in exchange for Calgary's own second-round pick in 2016. That's pick number 35, and a conditional third-round pick in 2018. Elliott from St. Louis to Calgary for a second and a conditional third. The 10th selection in the 2016 NHL Draft will be made by the Colorado Avalanche.
We've heard so much about the price for defensemen, the price that you're going to have to pay in salaries for goaltenders. We'll talk about that in just a moment, but first, Jeff Merrick.
Alongside Mikhail Sergachev of the Windsor Spitfires and now Montreal Canadiens as well. We just mentioned the story back in November. Feeling a little bit homesick, your head coach Rocky Thompson said, we're going to bring the family here. You get to see your sisters, your parents again, and just go out and play hockey. The game against Mississauga was a turning point for you. 1 goal, 3 assists, 6 shots on net. Was that a big game in your estimation, as much as we make it? Was it a big game to you?
I mean, yeah, that was maybe the biggest game, like in that season for me, like not for my team, but for me. And that turned my season like all the way. So that was awesome, yeah.
You know, you've really embraced life in North America, being a defenseman in the Ontario Hockey League as well. And I understand you're quite an accomplished ping pong player as well. You have a very expensive paddle. And I wonder, what has your head coach Rocky Thompson taught you about ping pong?
He's a good player in ping pong, but I'm better. Yeah, he's not as good as me. So.
Well, listen, congratulations. I know it must feel great. The jersey looks fantastic, and so does the hat.
Thank you.
You must be thrilled right now.
I don't know what is going on. It's just so cool. It's NHL. So I don't know. I don't know what to say.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Looks great.
Thank you.
Mikhail Sergachev of the Montreal Canadiens. Darren.
Purists all over us saying it's table tennis. But he can ping pong around the ice and make things happen, take a hit, and still make a play. His poise almost matches his skill.
Well, and doesn't this beg the question now? And Sam, you think Sergachev could play possibly right away? Does this open up the possibility, or more of a possibility, if they want to move PK Subban, the Montreal Canadiens? I know they're the one's a much more developed player, but I mean, Ivan Provorov, we think probably could have played in the NHL last night, but this season, but Philadelphia decided to take their time. Could that make it easier for Montreal to move through?
It's going to be a question at the Marc Bergevin, I'm sure. Back to Jeff.
Still one of the funniest guys in the NHL as well. We'll give you one of these and give you one of these. Marc Bergevin, GM of the Montreal Canadiens. Did you think, and all GMs always say no, but realistically, did you think that you had a shot at Sergachev where you were picking?
We felt there was a possibility, but you never know. I mean, obviously, he was the next guy on our list, but he could have went before. We would not have been surprised.
So for Montreal, picks and about the trades as well. I know you mentioned you're not actively shopping someone like PK Subban, but you're fielding calls. Where are you at with that process right now?
Well, we've been everybody's been talking about a trade that never happened, and it's probably never going to happen. So, like I mentioned, people are calling. I can't stop that. But you know, PK's an elite defenseman, and he's part of Canadian, and he'll be for a long time. So it's the way it is.
A lot of talk about defensemen. You got another really good one this evening. Congratulations, Marc.
Thank you very much.
Marc Bergevin, GM of the Montreal Canadiens. Darren?
If not stepping into the shoes of PK Subban, maybe it's the skates of Andrei Markov, who's transitioning out. So positive there. At number 10, the Colorado Avalanche. They draft in this position for the second year in a row. Joe Sakic's fourth as a general manager. This is a management team with Patrick Waugh that is still looking for that success that they enjoyed in their initial year together.
Well, I think it's just been a feeling out process.
On behalf of the Colorado Avalanche, we just want to thank the entire city of Buffalo for your great hospitality. We're proud to select in this year's entry draft from the BC Hockey League, Penticton Bees, Tyson Jost.
Joe stays in the league, and this is a very popular top 10 choice.
No question about it. There is no player that interviewed better than and one general manager said that's the best kid I have ever seen in an interview in 10 years of doing it. And you know they're talking to 40, 50, sometimes as many as 80 players. When it comes to Tyson Jost, look at that reaction. Absolutely stunning. That's his grandparents there actually helped him out, and they moved to Kelowna so that he could play in the program of excellence there, and that's why they're so elated. This has finally come to fruition now for Tyson Jost being able to be selected 10th overall.
His grandpa coached against Ken Hitchcock in the Alberta Junior League.
And he's very fortunate about he is so proud of his mother Laura, who raised him and his sister Casey all by herself. And he talked over and over, she's a special lady, I owe her everything. So for a single mom to raise these kids, and then for Tyson Jost to become the 10th player taken in this draft, pretty exciting for him. And this is a young man who knows his own path. He could have gone to Major Junior. This is sort of like Austin Matthews, same team, the Everett Silvertips, and said, no, I'm going to go to Penticton, and he is determined to go to the University of North Dakota next year and play there, and then because he thinks it's the fastest way to the NHL.
Well, he said there's 15% of UND players go on to play in the NHL, and to see his grandfather Jim crying it out there, you absolutely have to love it. When it comes to Jost, though, I'm so impressed by what he did at the under-18s. He walks into basically a CHL-dominated event. He gets the captaincy. That is next to impossible to do. Not only does it, he takes it, he runs with it. He breaks Connor McDavid's record by putting up 15 points, although Canada finished in 4th place, losing in the bronze medal game. I think the Colorado Avalanche have a guy here, maybe to replace Ryan O'Reilly when it comes to the leadership type qualities that he brings to the table.
That's just it. He's got all the skills. He can skate, he can shoot, he's got a nose for the net, creativity, but he's got all the intangibles. Yeah, the work ethic, the leadership, the defense. I've heard him be compared to Rob Brindamore. Yeah. That kind of player, that kind of commitment to playing the right way, without the puck, with the puck, dragging your teammates along as well.
A challenge, though, for NHL teams to look at a Tier 2 player and say, where should we take him? And the thing was, Sam, when you talked about how he played at the under-18s, one scout said to me, that removed the asterisk. Yeah. Because you put him against the best players of his age from all different things, and Jost measured up.
Talked about his childhood. He wanted zero sympathy. Called his mama's hero. Jeff?
Alongside Tyson Jost, and you know, single moms are allowed to celebrate Father's Day because they're doing double duty. Yeah. And I know on a night like this, one of the main things in your mind is your mom who did that with you.
It was so special. I mean, I can't speak highly enough for my mom. That moment I shared with her up there is so special. It's something I'll remember for such a long time. And I mean, just holding her in my arms is something so special. And I worked so hard for this, and she sacrificed so much. So I can't speak highly enough for her. I'm so excited.
It's a beautiful story. You know, I was talking to people after the U18s, and a couple of people said to me, you know, we had this guy out skating every day, and we'd have him out there for extra skates. We don't know what we need to do to it just keeps going.
Yeah, I mean, I think I get that from my mom. She's so relentless, and I said it before, I just have so much respect for what she did for my sister and I, and I mean, I think I got a lot of her character in me, so I mean, her and my grandma.
Beautiful story. Congratulations.
Thank
Colorado
you.
Avalanche selection, Tyson Jost.
Thank you.
Looks good on you.
Thanks.
Darren.
One more comment on Mom. Tyson said that he's going to college to be a better hockey player. What would Mom say? She'd probably punch me in the arm for that one. Gary Bettman at the podium. Just one more note on Tyson Jost. Such a great hockey player, but he's colorblind. He went to a Hockey Canada event and they had green jerseys and red jerseys on. He said he couldn't tell the difference. They had to switch them up. Gary Bettman.
We have a trade. The New Jersey Devils trade pick number 11 this draft to the Ottawa Senators in exchange for pick number 12 in this year's draft and a third-round pick in this year's draft, the 80th pick in the draft. 11 for 12 plus a third. Ottawa, you're on the clock.
Ottawa's got their eye on somebody. Wow.
You really got to know who you want, and then you also have to believe that New Jersey would be likely to take them.
Yeah,
to flip a third rounder to jump just one spot.
Go at the draft table here for the Ottawa Senators. Took over for Brian Murray. He's already gone out and hired Guy Boucher. He's brought in Mark Crawford to help coach his hockey club, and now making a splash here.
You know what this
at the draft table.
This is a guy who's the general manager of Ottawa, who's got the long scouting background, and he knows who he wants, and he's going to make sure that he gets that player.
Well, and Sam, you talked before the draft about Logan Stanley of the Windsor Spitfires. Big guy. The other big guy out there, Logan Brown, also of the Windsor Spitfires. The Ottawa Senators are not known as a big team. Those are a couple of directions that they could go in as well. And sitting there, and we've been talking about this since the beginning, Jacob Chychrun, who at this time last year might have been the #1 pick or #2 pick in the draft. So he's there. Ottawa has some really good choices here. They want to become a bigger hockey team. There's 3 big guys right there they could choose from.
Well, I think the Chychrun story is really something to follow here. I mean, I had him fall outside my top 10, but not too much further. I actually thought New Jersey was going to take him at 11. They had no issues with moving that pick away. So I'm fascinated to see, with trading the 80th pick and swapping one spot, I'm fascinated to see what Pierre Dorion does here.
Logan Brown, father Jeff Brown, longtime NHLer, coached in Ottawa for a little bit, some ties into the Ottawa community. If you're looking to get bigger, and Logan Brown's a bit of a polarizing guy, so you got to really love him if you're going to start flipping picks to get him, because not everyone necessarily believes how great he can be.
Well, and you can say if you're looking to get bigger, Logan Brown is still growing. Yeah. He wants to stop growing. He grew about a ½ inch this season, and he's a big guy. So there's him and Logan Stanley, a big defenseman. So last year, the Ottawa Senators were able to get a defenseman and a center, Colin White, as well. So they've got some, they're starting to rebuild their depth.
Thomas Schlott, the first there. They've missed the playoffs this year, allowed the 3rd most goals against. They're a top 7 team in goals for. So there's a lot going on around the Ottawa Senators.
They should be better at defense, though, even with their current personnel. It's as much about system and commitment to it, and maybe the new coaching staff will help the goals against. And listen, you can't teach size, and skill is hard to find.
You think they're going big? But
I think they want big. I think they want big offense.
So we got Arizona there with a new general manager. It's a big change for Ottawa. They've got a new general manager, a new coach coming in as well, a new general manager. So we're going to get a chance to see what Pierre Dorion Jr. and I knew his dad well, who liked big guys. But I mean, let's see what Pierre Dorion Jr. what he thinks is most important in a hockey player.
6'7" Logan Stanley on the blue line, and 6'6" Logan Brown down the middle. With options beyond that, but
I find this to be hysterical, though. I mean, you make that move, you're moving one pick up, and you're giving up a 3rd, and you're just kind of sitting hanging back. At that point, you got to figure you know exactly who you're getting, but you know, that's the general manager. Take my time, and of course, Brian Murray going up there with him, who's still playing a strong role in the decision making for the Ottawa Senators.
Ottawa Senators with 38 wins this year, but there's a team that disappointed. Brian Murray was very public about that, about the acquisition that they made at the trade deadline with Dion Phaneuf, that they wanted a playoff push, and it didn't happen.
And they think they have their 4 defensemen, though, and they have Phaneuf, Erik Karlsson, of course, young Cody Ceci, Mark Mathot.
Before making our selection, we would like to acknowledge our great fans all over the world, and those in particular attending our draft party in downtown Ottawa at Sen's House. The official bar of the Ottawa Senators. Les sénateurs d'Ottawa sont fiers de sélectionner. The Ottawa Senators are proud to select from the Windsor Spitfires, Logan Brown.
And they go at the bulk up front.
Well, and let's go back to our stories, you know, we talked about the 3 Finns, and now we go back to St. Louis. Here we go again. We had Matthew Tkachuk, we had Clayton Keller, and now we had Logan Brown. All these kids know each other. They all grew up together, playing together. Logan Brown's an interesting story in that they didn't really, in the house that they were living in St. Louis, they didn't really have a setup where he could play. So his dad went and bought a local roller skating rink, laid it down in the huge basement of their house, and that's where they played. So this is Wayne Gretzky grew up on a frozen pond in his backyard. Logan Brown learned the game with his dad in the basement of his house.
And Austin Matthews skated on synthetic ice in Scottsdale.
You know, Logan Brown's a very interesting story to me, and he's polarizing, as you talked about it, Damien, for several reasons. Let's start first with the option to choose whether he's going to play for Canada or for the U.S. Well, at the Ivan Hlinka, it's a non-sanctioned IIHF event, so you can play for anybody there. In fact, he didn't end up making that Ivan Hlinka team for Canada. But when it came to the IIHF sanctioned World Under-18s, he selected to play for the U.S. and played extremely well there. And talking about his head coach, Danton Cole, couldn't say enough good things about him. But I want to go back to the start of the year. Everyone projected this guy to be a top 15 pick. And he started the year, and you looked at his game, he was a little soft. He didn't play with much bite. He didn't shoot the puck much. He didn't get involved in the corners and some of the tougher areas on the ice. We went to the prospects game. He scored a goal. He had 3 shots on goal in that game, was a +1. And for me, that was the springboard where this guy's game absolutely took off. He went in the second half. He scored 13 of his 21 goals in the second half. He started to apply himself physically. The acquisition of Brendan Lemieux, who played on his line, forced him to become a shooter. We already knew he was a good skater, a good puck distributor, but when he added the physical element and the shooting element in the second half, that's what brought him back to the spot he's getting drafted right now at 11.
Daniel Alfredson, arm in arm with him, and that gives you an idea of how big he is.
But I think that might be a bit of a negative connotation if you need a guy like Brendan Lemieux to drag you into games and get you engaged and get you to play a little bit more jam. Maybe that's a bit of concern, but maybe the positives, I think he still's growing, and physically he's got lots of room to develop, and he can get stronger and more explosive. That's a good thing.
Well, and he is a big guy. His dad played in the National Hockey League, was the 36th pick of the 1984 draft, and the 37th pick was Jeff Chychrun. Now, young Logan Brown and Jacob Chychrun are best pals, and they were hoping, well, let's see if we can do better than our dads did and see if we can be drafted in the same area of the draft. Now, Logan Brown, with that incredible combination of skill and size, he's already gone. Let's see what happened to Jacob Chychrun.
Jeff?
Alongside Pierre Dorian, so we all know about your strong scouting background, so you must have had a couple of eyeballs on Logan Brown throughout the season. What do you find attractive about him?
Well, with Logan, it's his ability of his range, his playmaking ability. I think the way he improved and the way he took charge as the season went on for a pretty good Windsor Spitfire team is definitely something that myself and all our scouts were really impressed with.
You know, we see Bugstad in Florida at 6'6", and now we see Logan Brown drafted by Ottawa at same size. Are we moving now towards the large centerman era again in the NHL?
Well, there's definitely one thing about big centermen are really rangy. They cover a lot of ice, and with a hockey sense that Logan has, it's definitely something that we're definitely want to move towards.
You know, we saw 2 different Logan Browns this season, one in the beginning that struggled and one that excelled at the end of the season. From your point of view, what does he still need to work on?
Well, I think he still needs to work on his quickness. I think he's got a good shot. He's got to hit the net more often. I think sometimes he's so unselfish that he passes the puck a lot, but with his because of his playmaking abilities. So we'd like him to work obviously on his shot, but at the same time, his quickness will come with added strength.
You thought New Jersey would have taken him? That's why you moved up?
Yeah, it was just someone that we were really high on, and the price to pay with a 3rd rounder to get a player of that caliber, we weren't sure who they were going to take, but Ray Shear was really gracious enough to just switch picks, and we were happy to do so.
You got your guy. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Pierre Dorian, GM of the Ottawa Senators, Darren.
Great quote from Pierre was, on this day, as a scout, you think of all those drives between Saskatoon and Moose Jaw. Maybe we have to alter that a little bit to Windsor and London as he goes to the Spitfires and gets the big centerman. Back to Jeff.
Alongside Logan Brown here now of the Ottawa Senators. How much conversation did you have with Ottawa before the draft?
Not too much. Just really at the combine there. I actually train with their strength coach, Chris Schwartz, back home. So yeah. I'm in their rink a lot, and I kind of see him a lot, but not much conversation about this kind of stuff. it's it's a bit of a surprise, and I couldn't be happier.
Strength in the second half has been a big issue for you. A very sophisticated weight program for you, and you saw yourself excel. Where are you at right now with your training?
Just trying to, I cut a lot of body fat. I cut my weight down, so I was a real lean 210. I'm really trying to build on muscle and get stronger, faster, and just to become a bigger force out there.
Are you still growing?
I grew about a ½ inch this past year, so I hope I'm done. 6.5 is enough for me. So
sky's the limits for Logan Brown and the Ottawa Senators as well. Darren.
I wonder if the Ottawa Senators agree with that's enough. Damien, you talked about the connection between the Brown family and the Chychruns, and 1984 they went back to back, and Chychrun at 12 would make it strange, bizarre, but appropriate. The New Jersey Devils fell back one spot and now will select in the 12th position. Ray Shiro's the general manager of the New Jersey Devils, his second draft in charge.
The New Jersey Devils would like to thank Kim and Terry Pegula for a great week, the city of Buffalo for a great week, and also the NHL Combine, Mr. and Ms. Pegula, thank you very much for that as well. And the New Jersey Devils also like to congratulate the Pittsburgh Penguins, Jimmy Rutherford, Mike Sullivan on the Stanley Cup Championship. And on behalf of the Jersey Devils and our great fans, we are pleased to select from the OHL Mississauga Steelheads, Michael McLeod.
So many second-generation players being taken and up for the draft. This is just one, the continuation of one family in the McLeods.
Yeah, you got Matt McLeod, who actually plays here and has a dressing room here in this building. And then you've got Brian, who plays with them in Mississauga, who's expected to be a top 10 pick in 2018. And Michael McLeod is a guy who's got unbelievable work ethic. He's got unbelievable speed. He plays the center ice position. I think the one concern that a lot of people had about him is, do the mitts match the boots? And if and when he's a really dynamic player, in the meantime, you can afford to wait on him because of the work ethic. You know he's going to will himself into the National Hockey League, and you know he's going to give you a maximum effort every shift. So power play, penalty kill, he can do all things out there on the ice.
Well, you can see what Ray Shiro's doing. When he was with the Pittsburgh Penguins, you have Sidney Crosby and you have Evgeny Malkin down the middle. Last year he's drafts Pavel Zacha with their top pick. Now he adds Michael McLeod. You start to build that depth down the middle. They have a lot of needs. This is going to be a pick, I think, that's a little higher than a lot of people would have had it. And it'll be up to Michael McLeod to show, exactly as you say, that he'll have eventually the finish to justify taking him this high in the draft.
That's hard to develop. It really is. You can learn how to shoot harder. You can do stick handling drills, but to find that offensive producing mentality and feel, which many times innate in a player, can be difficult. But he is safe in the sense that even if it doesn't pan out and he turns into a top 6 guy, he can very comfortably play on your third line, play with speed, play with some edge, kill penalties, and not disappoint in that sense. He'll play in the NHL. Bit of a safe pick that way.
Well, second member of the Mississauga Steelheads to go in this draft, and all 7 Canadian teams have made their first selection, including the Toronto Maple Leafs, who've taken Austin Matthews. He will join us next. A week after Father's Day, we acknowledge the moms in this 2016 NHL draft on Sportsnet.
They're going for the
Feels good, hey?
There was an expectation that there's going to be a lot of passion and some expectation, and I think he knows what's going to be asked of him. He's ready to put it out.
First round of the 2016 NHL draft continues on Sportsnet. Darren Millard along with Mike Johnson, Damian Cox, and #1 overall pick of the Toronto Maple Leafs, Austin Matthews. A nice blue Lamorello to help you get into the sweater.
Yeah.
Brand new sweater. The first one to model it. Looks good.
Yeah, I like it. I think it looks great.
What do you think when you see your mom like that?
What's that?
What do you think when you see your mom?
Yeah, it's, you know, she's pretty emotional. I mean, she's been such a big part along with my dad, and you know, helping me get to this point, all the sacrifices they've made. So I know I think this is a really
They didn't know anything
moment.
about hockey, right?
No. 14 years ago, they had no idea. So I think this is a pretty special moment for all of us.
You've taken a pretty unique route to get to the NHL, through Arizona, over to Europe, all the rest of it. You're going to a pretty unique market as well, first overall pick. What are your thoughts about heading to Toronto? What kind of advice have you received along the way about what challenges might arise playing there?
Just take it all in. You know, it's going to be a learning curve. You want to soak it all in, enjoy it. You know, I'm definitely looking forward to it, that's for sure.
So last year, I can't remember, last winter, you and I sat down in Ann Arbor, we had a long chat, and you were a year and more away from this, but the process had already begun. And it's been a long year of talking about it. Now that it's over, is it relief? Are you exhausted? Now finally we can get up? I mean, what do you feel at this exact moment?
I think it's everything. You know, I was so excited. It's such an honor to be part of a franchise like the Toronto Maple Leafs. So, you know, it's over. It's everything set in stone. It's you know, definitely a big relief.
Thank you very much, and congratulations.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
There's Austin Matthews for the very first time. Let's look at putting his name and the 16 for this year. First overall on that sweater. That's going to be flying off the shelves at SportCheck when it's available in September. The brand new sweater with the brand new first overall pick of the Toronto Maple Leafs coming together here in Buffalo. The Toronto Maple Leafs, along with the 6 other Canadian clubs, have made their first selections in this opening round. Now coming in at number 13, the Carolina Hurricanes, who have a couple of picks in this first round. Ron Francis doing his work at 13 and 21. The number 13 selection, Ron Francis.
I'd like to thank the Buffalo Sabres and the city of Buffalo for the excellent hospitality this week. I'd also like to say hello to all our fans back at PNC Arena, and also congratulate Jim Rutherford and the Pittsburgh Penguins on their Stanley Cup victory. With the 13th pick, Carolina Hurricanes are proud to select from Calgary, the WHL, Jake Bean.
Maybe the purest offensive defenseman that will go in this first round.
And the interesting challenge for Jake Bean, as a Canadian, how do you crack the first All-American defense in the National Hockey League with the Carolina Hurricanes? Yeah. He's got a lot of skill, but he's got some developing to do.
He's excellent, though, with the puck. His lateral movement on the blue line, his ability to find seams. And he put up 24 goals in the WHL this year. He's excellent. But you think about what Carolina's doing now with Hanifin and Pesce and Slavin, Justin Falk. They have a group of defensemen there in Carolina right now that they can grow with. But you have to like what this guy does with the puck. Offensively, he's got a real knack for the net.
Was not drafted in the Western Hockey League's Bantam draft.
No, he was too small. He, you know, and he had the skill, but he was too small at that time. His dad is the COO of the Calgary Flames, but he really decided, you know what, let's take it slow, and so they did, and he stayed at home, and he ended up playing. Made a dynamic defense pairing this year with Travis Sanheim, the Flyers draft pick. They were almost unstoppable as a power play team, and that's the kind of player he's projected to be in the National Hockey League, a power play quarterback.
But I mean, he was not drafted in the Bantam draft, but played in the Western Hockey League as a 16-year-old. Yeah. That's a massive jump.
Yeah, and it really shows you how quickly he was able to develop his skills. But it took some foresight for an organization who believed in him and was able to look past the size. At a time when size means a lot to a lot of teams, Calgary was able to look past.
Maybe just another reminder how young these guys are, because a lot of them still are growing. Yeah. Not only physically maturing, but just growing in height as well, adding inches to their frame. So that's a lot of defensemen wearing that red Carolina jersey.
Jake Bean pulls on the Carolina Hurricanes for the first time and starts his National Hockey League journey in a team and an organization that's coming together. They've, under Bill Peters, have cut their goals against, their shots against down dramatically, and maybe not next year, but the year after, certainly ready to make a run at a playoff spot. Carolina Hurricanes have made their first selection at 13. The Boston Bruins, Don Sweeney next, as we approach the midway mark of the opening round of the 2016 NHL Draft on Sportsnet. Our coverage of the 2016 first round of the NHL draft. The Boston Bruins next for the second straight year at the number 14 position. But we're joined right now by Patrik Laine, the number 2 pick of the NHL draft here in Buffalo of the Winnipeg Jets. What was your season like, the way that you had to take over Jesse Puljujarvi and then became as much a personality, known for your personality as your game?
Yeah, I think I had a pretty good season, and it was nice to compete against Jesse all season. And I think after the under 20s at home when we won, that I think my season was just getting started. So it was just easy to continue playing back home.
You had quite a year. Taking today out of it, what was the highlight? You won the professional championship over there. You won the World Juniors. What was the highlight of your season this year?
I think winning our Pro League championship with the team, it was quite special. They had lost 3 times in a row before the championship, so it was quite huge to win the championship with that team.
So the big thing about you, I think most people talk about your ability to score goals and your shot. How did you develop your shot? In your home, in your backyard?
Yeah, pretty much. And of course in a practice, but I had a good chance in our backyard to shoot some pucks and
shoot them at soda cans usually.
Yeah, soda cans and competing with my dad.
And what did your neighbors think about pucks and soda cans?
And they didn't say anything. It was good.
So I want to show you a picture. This goes back to April 30th. You and I having a conversation of FaceTime.
Yeah.
Okay, I just want to know, in front of the world, what were you doing?
Just lying on the bed.
Now in the morning?
No, it was filmed the other day, so it was during the day. Yeah.
Okay. You cut your hair since then, though?
Yeah. It's better now.
So you're gonna do any more of those?
I don't know. I want to be me, and that was me. So I don't want to be nervous at those interviews, and I just want to be me.
We were thinking next time he'll be in bed and you can be standing up. What do you think?
Yeah, maybe. Yeah.
I don't think anybody needs to see that. The Boston Bruins. Thank you to Patrik Laine. Congratulations, number 2. Winnipeg gets another fantastic fin with the Jets version 2.0 to go along with Teemu Selänne's production with Winnipeg Jets in the early 90s. Boston Bruins have assembled.
Good to see you. Congratulations.
Boston Bruins would first like to thank all of our fans back home at our draft party watching for this evening. A special thanks to Kim and Terry Pegula for their hospitality here this week. With the 14th pick, the Boston Bruins select Boston University Terrier Charlie McAvoy.
Charles McAvoy, the youngest player in the NCAA this year.
Good puck mover, and to think that he did all those things, a great point production, playing against men, playing against a much older group. The thing that Boston really likes about this guy is the fact that he's just scratching the surface. He's just starting to acquire pro mentality when it comes to eating, the nutrition, the fitness, the off-ice workouts, the practice habits. They're all just starting to enter his game. They feel he's already really good, but when he gets the rest of that stuff in order, they think he's going to be a rock star.
So we've given kudos to St. Louis and what they're producing. So let's talk about Long Island, because that's where Charlie McAvoy's from. Played for the Long Island Gulls, came up through there. Interesting story about him: when he was in his U14 year, he broke his arm and he missed 3 months, and he said, I just fell off the face of the earth. And it might have all ended there, but he was able to come back from that. But the arm didn't heal properly. He had to have surgery. So he's already a kid who's had to deal with some of that. He said at the time, I'd forgotten how to play hockey. But he was able to come back with the New Jersey Rockets. He grew 4 or 5 inches, got his confidence back. Now he's at BU and a first-round NHL draft pick.
I like him a lot. I love how smooth he is, the way he moves the puck up the ice, the way he can pass. And for Boston, it's time to reach that level. Not you know, McLeod and Miller on the bottom side of it. Torrey Krug is maybe the one guy who's still a puck-moving defenseman they have on their roster. They need players like this to start sliding into their lineup.
Right. And last year they took Jacob Zaboral of St. John, so they're starting that process.
They need some options on the way.
That's right.
I think what's interesting is you take a guy at Boston University, and everyone says, well, yeah, Boston University is going to go to the Boston Bruins. But the fact of the matter is, as a general manager and as your scouts, when you have an off day, you can go watch the guy play. You can go watch him in practice. You get all those extra viewings, all that extra knowledge you build up about the player helps you make this decision.
But and we've seen it, and maybe we're seeing it right now with Jacob Chychrun. Sometimes the more you watch a guy, the more you try to find faults, the more you kind of pick him apart. So maybe it speaks even more highly of Charlie McAvoy, the fact that Boston could see him all the time just down the road and still found reason to slide on up and take him.
You talk to enough people, you realize a lot of these kids that go to school in Boston all seem to want to go back to play in Boston.
Yeah.
Jimmy Vesey is one of those. And right now, Charles McAvoy looks like he's going to start his career with the Boston Bruins, drafted 14th overall in the first round. Chuck Fletcher, who's been busy, bought out Thomas Vanek earlier today, has the 15th overall pick next in the 2016 NHL draft from Buffalo. Sportsnet's coverage of the 2006 opening round of the NHL draft continues. One of the coolest things is instant communication when you do something great. And Matthew Tkachuk, when he scored the game-winning goal in the MasterCard Memorial Cup, got a tweet from Mike Modano. I thought that was really cool. But it's happening to all these kids who are drafted in this first round. Down to Sofia Jurskovic.
Darren, yeah, I'm monitoring social media reaction. I want to start off by saying that since 7 o'clock, the top trending topics in Canada on Twitter have all been related to the 2016 NHL draft. The hype is real. Let's get to a couple of tweets, starting with Jake Gardner and Brooks Like, who both tweeted at Austin Matthews, congratulating him and welcoming him as the newest member of the Toronto Maple Leafs. Former Toronto Maple Leaf and fan favorite Darcy Tucker is here at First Niagara Center. He snapped a shot of Austin Matthews and posted it to Twitter with the caption, #16. Darcy, of course, wore number 16, and that is Matthews' number. Finally, I want to remind fans that if they're browsing the internet like I am, to log on to Facebook, because Sportsnet's Chris Johnson is doing Facebook Live presented by Sports Check interviews with all the top draft picks. And the good thing about Facebook Live is you can actually ask your questions and input your questions to Chris Johnson. So again, if you're browsing the internet, make sure you log on and watch that. And with that, Darren, sending it back to you.
Sophia, thank you. We've been a little busy to check the Twitter feed up here. Amy Dean seems to always find the time. There's Bruce Boudreau, the new head coach of the Minnesota Wild, who we ran into yesterday. And
I think he'll make. Mike Yeo was a good coach. I think Bruce Boudreau will make a huge difference in Minnesota.
Totally
Regular
different.
season, he has put up, regardless of his team, how they play, nothing but elite production. 4 or 5 wins a year different. Bruce Boudreau. Say what you want about his playoff track record. His regular season success speaks for itself. Maybe the greatest regular season record of any coach ever.
And we're going to see now if there's a change in philosophy.
Yeah.
Very strong defensive team. Mike Yeo, they had some offensive players. Some of them produced, some they didn't. Do they add more to defense? But they've already got some defense they've got to protect and maybe have to move in the draft. So an interesting choice here for Chuck.
The Minnesota Wild would like to thank the city of Buffalo and the Buffalo Sabres for their great hospitality this week. Also like to say hello to all our fans watching, specifically the fans watching at the XL Energy Center. And with their pick tonight, Minnesota is proud to select from the University of Wisconsin, Luke Kunin.
Another centerman, another player in the St. Louis area.
So St. Louis has now beaten Finland 4-3.
Pretty amazing.
That's what I've got. So it is
4
incredible.
of the top 15.
Well, in a draft where the top player comes out of Scottsdale, Arizona, Finland takes over the top 5 picks, and now St. Louis. And this kid, boy, he is, if I were to compare him to somebody in the draft, he was similar. We talked to him, Tyson Jost, very similar, a lot of character. Clearly the Minnesota Wild wants somebody who can jump, because he led the combine with a 29-inch vertical jump. He's an excellent athlete. His brother's a really good golfer. But he showed well last fall at the All-American game right here in this very arena. Scored 2 goals playing on a line with Matthew Tkachuk. went to Wisconsin. The Badgers had a horrible season. They played him at left wing, but Sam, I think he's a center.
Yeah, and I think so with the size too. But I like the fact that he went to Wisconsin. It's a program that kind of went into the dives a little bit, and he said, yeah, I'm going to go to Wisconsin. Why? Because I want to be part of the solution moving forward. I don't want to be riding someone's coattails and think that I'm going to go to a good program and just be a passenger there. I want to be the leader. I want to be part of the solution here moving forward. And Damien, you talked about the character issue. Tyson Jost, the best interview by far here at the NHL Combine. This guy, though, was second best interview. The teams absolutely loved what he brought to the table. He's a very mature young man. He comes to the rink with a smile on his face. And obviously with the production, they think they got a guy that I agree with you that will play center here down the road.
It's not easy to score in college. It really isn't. And when you're coming in as a 17, 18-year-old playing against guys who are 3, 4 years older, more physically mature, stronger, faster, and they put up almost 20, is quite an offensive season.
So we talked about some of the St. Louis dads, Jeff Brown, Logan Brown, Keith Tkachuk with Matthew Tkachuk. Here's the story with Luke Cunning's dad. So they're drafting a team when they're really young, and his older brother makes the team. Matthew Tkachuk makes the team. Luke Cunning's dad cut him from the team.
Yeah.
Tough love.
And he says, my dad still laughs about it.
Yeah, I guarantee you Mom Sherry doesn't. She wasn't very happy at the time. Blocked a shot this season, went back to the bench, said, I deserve that because I lost the face-off. Detroit's next. Kenny Holland back to the podium. Busy couple of weeks dealing with the passing of Gordie Howe and his involvement with the funeral, and then Pavel Datsyuk and that decision to go back to Russia, and with the salary cap hanging over his head and the implications there, as well as Jimmy Howard. He would love to be able to move that contract. So there's a lot on Kenny Holland's mind as we bring in John Shannon.
Darren, another draft, and that means that Brad Treliving's always busy. Last year was Dougie Hamilton, and now you came to Buffalo with one of the key goals, I think, was to get a goaltender. You've done that. Tell us about the Brian Elliott deal.
Well, we really like him. You know, he has played on a good team, but you look at the numbers that he's put up over the course, not only last year, but the last 3 years. It's been really impressive. And then the performance that he had in the playoffs. So an excellent goaltender. We love the acquisition cost. We love the player. Not only what he does on the ice, but this is a real high character person who's going to fit in great with our group and be a leader for us.
Are you done with your goaltending search?
We never say done. You know, it's an area that we've wanted to address throughout the organization. Adding Brian is a big addition for us today. We're going to continue poking around. We've been able to add some depth throughout the organization, so we'll continue to look.
And Matthew Tkachuk, you got to be just absolutely thrilled.
Yeah, I mean, we've watched this guy the last 2 years, and you know, ultimately, the goal is to win, and this guy's a winner. Wherever he goes, he's had success. London Knights, they win the championship this year. He's a key part of it. Thinks the game so well, but you know, he plays for keeps, plays hard, and we're glad he's with us now.
I haven't had a chance to talk to you since Glenn Gulutzan came on board as the coach. How does Glenn's philosophy change, and how change your process of picking players for this team?
I don't necessarily think it changes. You know, the goal is to get them in order and get the best players here. But you know, I think Glenn's going to be a great addition for us. You know, he's excited. I think he's going to have a real open and honest dialogue with the players. He's excited to get going. I know he's feeling a little bit better after this evening about getting started.
Thanks for this.
Thanks, John.
All right, Darren.
There was a few goaltenders that teams were looking at. Freddie Anderson moved this week. Bishop in Tampa Bay, Howard in Detroit, and they go with Brian Elliott. Your thoughts?
And Marc-Andre Fleury as well out of Pittsburgh. But I think they went what it's going to cost to acquire that goalie in Brian Elliott versus the other guys, and maybe more importantly, what it's going to cost to pay that goalie. Now, would they rather have Ben Bishop? Likely, but Calgary would not be comfortable in going to get Ben Bishop for $7 million a year for 5 to 7 years. So now they have Elliott a bit more controlled. And obviously, it looks like Detroit.
It's Detroit and Arizona that
having a little chat,
having the conversation right now. Detroit is next at the 16 position,
and their time has expired at this point.
Arizona has already made one selection. They're slated to come back at the number 20 position. John Chychrun back. as a young general manager.
One of the players that's going to be an interesting to watch in this first round is the Russian center, German Rubtsov. Now, he's a bit of a controversial one because he was part of that Russian team that was basically pulled from the U18s because of this Meldonium scandal. Most teams are saying that's not really going to make a lot of difference. But he didn't play in some of the bigger events this year. He was great at the World, the challenge in December. And they really like this guy as a player, but who's going to step up and take him? He wants to come to North America. He's made it clear. Now, the question is, if you're Detroit and they've had great success with Russian players, do you think you can get him a little bit later and trade down and do that? And I wonder if he's one of the players who might be involved in all of this.
Try and get a little more on this, John Shannon.
You know, Darren, there's always stories of this, the Austin Matthews draft. But you've got to think that there's starting some discussion about the Jacob Chychrun draft, and talking to 3 teams in the last 15 minutes about why Chychrun has taken basically a free fall. Every team said the same thing, and file it away, guys. He wasn't very good at the prospects game. One game changed a lot of people's philosophies about Jacob Chychrun. I know he was injured, he had a shoulder injury, he had shoulder surgery. But I'll tell you what, that one game we saw at the Pacific Coliseum in Vancouver played a big part in why Chychrun's gone all the way down into the teens.
Thank you, John. You think about Detroit and Arizona talking, maybe a team with cap space and Pavel Datsuk's contract. We'll explore it as we take a break here at the 2016 NHL Draft on Sportsnet.
It's like watching Brady.
It's a difficult thing to watch, but when it comes to Jacob Chychrun, he's been watched so much. The first overall pick in the Ontario Hockey League, you know, son of an NHL player. He's got the size and the brawn of a man, and everyone wants to pick apart what he doesn't do well. There is a lot to like about this guy, and I'm not sure exactly where he's going to go, but there is a lot to like in the fact that you're getting a mature guy well over what his age would suggest. You're getting a pro body. You're also getting a guy who does have a skill set where he can skate and move pucks. It's just a matter of figuring out exactly where he fits into the modicum of these picks.
We have a decision, or at least an announcement. Here's Gary Bettman.
Apologize for the delay, but we have a trade. Detroit trades Pavel Datsuk and pick number 16 in the 2016 draft to Arizona for Joe Vitale, the New York Rangers first-round pick in 2016, number 20, which was previously acquired, and a second-round pick in 2016, number 53 in the draft. So it's Datsuk and pick 16 to Arizona for Vitale, the Rangers first pick, number 20, and a second-round pick, number 53.
And Detroit gets out from underneath that salary cap hit.
Well,
move back 4 spots.
It's going to cost them. They move down 4 spots, but that's Arizona also taking advantage of some salary cap space. What an opportunity.
Ken Holland was adamant he wasn't just going to trade a first-round pick to get out from under it. Now he's moved down a little bit, but where we are at this point in the draft, Sam, I think he can comfortably move down and think, okay, I can't get maybe exactly, but I'm going to get something comparable. So to move, and there are other pieces to this trade, but I think this is a reasonable price to play probably for Ken Holland.
It says to me that they have a range of about 5 guys, and that they feel they're happy with anyone in that range of 5 with the ability to move down. And you know, John Chychrun's done some interesting things here on.
If you thought he was going to tiptoe in as a 27-year-old National Hockey League general manager, Goligoski earlier this week, now he's made the move here.
Well, and taking Clayton Keller with the with the 7th pick was something. So they're prepared to make a statement in Arizona. This was supposed to be a change in direction with this new group. Don Maloney out, young John Chychrun in, and they're making a statement.
Part of that change, though, is that guy right there, Dave Tippett, who is no longer just head coach Dave Tippett. He has a lot of say in maybe not the salary cap machinations of what's going on here, but it's what player we want right now. So he's working together with John Chychrun to figure out what player we can have right here that's going to help Dave Tippett, the coach, do a better job on the ice next year.
Well, it's kind of like Patrick Roy, isn't it? He's the head coach behind Colorado's men, but still has personnel say, so it's not unseen before. And it'll be interesting to see here what Arizona goes with, how much the analytics play a part in this next pick.
Right, and Clayton Keller, a small forward. We're watching Jacob Chychrun sit there. Am I allowed to say at this point, oh, please take the kid? Because I, as a father, I find it so hard to watch.
There always seems to be one, though, right?
There always is. And Sam last year was Jansen Harkins. He ended up falling, and now it's Jacob Chychrun. So we'll see what Arizona decides to do. He doesn't necessarily fit the model necessarily what they're doing, but as you said, this kid's a quality hockey player.
The Arizona Coyotes select from the Ontario Hockey League Sarnia Sting, Jacob Chychrun.
Now there's Tim Bernhardt, who's Ontario-based. He's the head scout here, and he says that John Chayka's really allowed him to go out and do his job. When I looked at them taking Keller, I thought, wow, they got a lot of forward depth in Arizona. That's not something that they necessarily needed there. But they identified the player, they liked him. Maybe there's an analytic thing to acquiring him, and they do so here with their first pick. And then you get to Jacob Chychrun, and you say, you know what? They've got Dyson Mayles, the guy who comes top of mind as a top prospect in their organization defensively. Now they add Jacob Chychrun to the mix. And like I said before, there was no question this guy's a first-round pick. How far was he going to slip? Yeah, I think this is kind of a reasonable spot for that to happen. But let's talk about the things that we like in his game. You like the size. You like the skating ability. Yes, he can move the puck. The issue he has, Jacob Chychrun, is two things. First of all, his ability to process the game at a high speed. But by playing a simpler game, that is an easier fix than maybe would first be anticipated. The next thing is, he's never really faced adversity coming up through his minor hockey. He used to fly up from Florida and go and play in Detroit. He was the first overall selection. Yeah, he had the shoulder surgery, but he's pretty much been able to do offensively whatever he's wanted to do. I'm not so sure that he's not like Darnell Nurse, a guy who thinks that maybe he has more offense to give than what he actually has to give. If he concentrates on the defensive side of the game first and then worries about playing offensive, putting up numbers, I think that's where he's going to find success, and it's a matter of him thinking that and a matter of the organization giving him direction to do that.
All I know is if he fell because he didn't play well in the prospects game, that makes no sense to me. One bad game out of the course of a season, the course of your young development life is going to drop you down. You can debate the player, but just one bad game seems a little harsh to me.
Yeah, I don't think that's true. I think he struggled at different times.
But it can certainly add to it.
That's not why, but what John Shannon said, some teams felt that was
one of those, but also at the U18s, he played with Dante Fabbro, who has not yet been drafted, and Fabbro was seen by many scouts to be the better player of the two. Now, I think what you're saying here is we've watched this kid since he was 14. We're not going to let one bad season throw us off that he's a player. And they're going to come out and say, we're surprised he was there. We think he's an excellent pick. But there's a lot of talent to this kid, a lot of size. But he's going to play.
Let make no mistake, when I'm talking to everyone around this draft, when you're like, who might slip, Jacob Chychrun's name came up. And I think it's because this notion that you talked about lack of adversity, he was always the biggest and the strongest and the fastest and the best. And when you're like that, you don't often need to learn how to play and think the game because you're just so much bigger
and that's
physically.
What I think people are thinking, can he
he'll be able to figure that out as he goes and is developed with some good coaching around him.
And that was the thing at the prospects game, and I don't believe it was just one thing. He didn't make some good decisions, and that reinforced the belief of some scouts. How does he think the game?
And you're right. The under-18 viewings definitely played a part in that, where he was just okay. And those most recent viewings tend to stick in a lot of scouts' minds, especially in high-leverage situations such as an under-18 World Championship.
But because you don't have an elite offensive mind for the game doesn't mean you can't be an effective NHL defender. You have the size and the strength to defend. You can still get the job done. And I was thinking about maybe a guy like Zach Bogosian comes to mind when I think of Jacob Chychrun. A big guy who skates really well, shoots it hard, maybe doesn't think it the best, doesn't pass it the best, but he can still play.
And what do you think of a defensive tandem in the future of Jacob Chychrun as he develops playing alongside Oliver Ekman-Larsson? Let him have the puck. You take care of your own end, and I think that's the kind of player that he may ultimately develop into.
Wonder what the wait was like. Jeff?
Alongside Jacob Chychrun, and one thing we know about you, when you have a reason to get motivated, you do get motivated. How motivated are you now to excel?
Yeah, I don't need much extra motivation, but you know what? This was a little bit extra for sure. Extremely thrilled to be a part of Arizona. This was one spot I had circled on my list, so
couldn't be more happy.
How often did they talk to you? How much conversation was there between you and Arizona?
We had a good meeting here in Buffalo at the Combine. Very good. I left with a great feeling, and another great feeling here today.
Now, you've made a lot of sacrifices. Your family has as well. From Florida to Michigan when you were 12 years old, I think it's 2 years of flights, 200, 300 flights back and forth. Does it all seem worth it right now?
100%. Sometimes you have to make those sacrifices. And, my parents did such a great job of giving me every opportunity to be successful. And, my mom didn't want me leaving the house at 12 years old, so she kept me home to go to school. And fortunate enough, we were able to fly me in to Michigan every weekend. And, that was one of many sacrifices I made, and it's really paid off.
You're a heck of a defenseman. Arizona's lucky. Congratulations, Jacob.
I appreciate it. Thanks.
Jacob Chychrun of the Arizona Coyotes. To Elliott we go.
Jeff, just one note. That deal is notable not only for the pick of Chychrun, but also because Pavel Datsyuk's contract was moved, and he had a $7.5 million cap hit, and Detroit retained none of the salary. That's the key here. So now Detroit, with this deal, not only moves down in the draft, but they clear a ton of cap room, and that's going to make them a player in the offseason free agency market. Darren?
Replaces.
Ellie, we speculated on what they would have to surrender, and it is a pick, but not a roster player. So Kenny Holland avoids that, doesn't retain any salary, and he gets it done now, before the negotiating window in free agency and next Friday.
It's really well done. I mean, think what it cost
drops
him.
4 spots.
Dropped 4 spots, maintains the first rounder. It cost him a second. No salary retained. Perhaps Arizona needed to add some salary to get up to that floor, as well as Detroit sliding down. And if Detroit wants to make a run at Steven Stamkos,
let's make no doubt about it. Pavel Datsyuk, I think this is an unfortunate end to a great hockey story in Detroit, because he was such a great player, such a marvelous player, Stanley Cup champions, all that stuff. Pavel Datsyuk put the Detroit Red Wings in a really, really bad spot.
But to be fair, I don't think Pavel Datsyuk, I know he signed a 3-year deal and he probably could have just said, give me 2. But he had made it very clear the last couple of years that he was leaning on going back sooner than later. And Kenny Holland knew that when he signed him to 3 years and actually had to talk him into playing last year. So I don't think it came as a surprise. Now, they probably both should have handled the contract better and just signed 1 year, 1 year, 1 year. But I don't think Kenny Holland's surprised at all that Pavel Datsyuk was elected to go back to home, because even prior to signing a 3-year deal, it was out there that he's leaning in that direction.
And on the Arizona side, compliment Chychrun. John Chychrun goes out and picks up 2 picks in the first round of his first draft as a general manager in the top 16.
He's moved his AHL franchise now to the state. That's a big thing for them.
Nashville at 17.
We'd like to say hello to our draft party at Tavern 96 in the Ford Ice Center in Nashville. The Nashville Predators are proud to select from Penticton, the BC Junior League, Dante Fabbro.
Great relationship between Tyson Jost and Dante Fabbro, roommates in Penticton. They had a running bet, just a friendly bet about who would go first overall, but it went so far beyond that, the barbs that they traded, and this is a mature young defenseman.
Yeah, I really love what he brings to the table. It's an all-around game, and some say he might be undersized, but then again, we've started to see at the National Hockey League level that guys who are a little bit smaller can play defense if they're really good puck movers, and he's excellent on the retrieval. He's very heady. He can skate the puck out. He makes a good first pass, and he has some offensive upside as well. When it comes to Dante Fabbro, though, I really got a good viewing of him at the World Junior A Challenge in Cobourg, Ontario in December, and then watched him again in Surrey, BC at the Prospects game there for the BCHL for all the Canadian Junior Tier 2, and he was excellent in that game, continued to take a step forward, showed some leadership skills playing for Canada at the under 18s, and again, it's not easy when you're coming from the BCHL to go into a CHL dominant event and become a top guy for Canada as he was at the under 18s.
I'm just wondering how he managed to ever get to play hockey, because his dad was on a golf scholarship and his sisters both are on soccer scholarships at Austin Peay State University. Somehow Dante managed to get a hockey game in there, and he's now a first-round pick.
Boys, do I dare remind you that Shea Weber is his favorite player as well? He talked about that when we were here at the Combine with him. The other thing is Nashville now has a player that's going to go to a Boston area university. And the last time they had a first-round pick to go to a Boston area university, they weren't able to sign him after the year, and he went back and he's a free agent on August 15th, and that's Jimmy Vesey. So a little interesting drama for Fabbro and the Predators. I expect him, though. He won't be a problem for David Poile, not like Vesey.
Yeah, you might have a problem with Nashville fans, though, John, bringing that up. But this is an organization that's always been built from goal, blue line.
Well,
up.
and we talked with Columbus. When they had their pick, they took a guy who they think could replace Ryan Johansson, a center, and Pierre-Luc Dubois. So what was the flip side of that trade? Nashville, to get Johansson, traded Seth Jones, right-handed shooting defenseman Dante Fabbro, a nice replacement for that hole.
And I started thinking about the expansion draft now. Weber, Gauthier, and Ekholm. That's 4. You only protect 3 unless you work out some other arrangement. So if they were to lose one, well, maybe you have another good young player coming up in the pipeline. And, you know, you think he does a well-rounded game. Little some comparisons maybe to Chris Letang in his game, maybe not quite the same edge.
Ryan McDonough maybe.
But he does, you know, you're right. He does have some of that bite to his game. And anytime Nashville takes a defenseman, I'm not arguing, I'll tell you that.
Trust them.
Well, it was funny when Jacob Chychrun, we were wondering, Sammy and I looked at Nashville and we went, okay, Nashville will take them because that's what they do. They develop defense.
There's Ryan Johansson there to welcome him. That's pretty cool.
Ryan here with his brother Lucas there, future teammate on the way in. That's well done.
The 18th selection in the 2016 NHL draft belongs to the Philadelphia Flyers.
Ron Hextall, his second draft in charge of the team that he broke in with in the National Hockey League. Flyers have 10 picks this year. Of course, went with the defenseman last year, Ivan Provorov. And a salary cap pinch, bought out RJ Umberger. Philadelphia Flyers.
They've taken a really patient approach. Ron Hextall's come in and not been the kind of gunslinger like Philly used to be, and it's been a much better job. He's building that team. Their defensive prospects are deep.
Oh, yeah.
Lots of them. Morin, Sanheim, Provorov.
And that's why you got to believe they're going forward, right?
If they take a player here, they have to take a forward.
I mean, you can only play with so many defensemen, and they've got so many good young defensemen. Yeah. So when you look at and you start wondering, well, who's on the board for them as a forward? Kiefer Bellows, goal-scoring forward, certain there. Julian Gauthier.
They got flyer on Gauthier, maybe.
Julian Gauthier at one point of Eldor was seen as a top 10 pick. 6'4", scores a ton of goals. He's another guy who's there. And
Max Jones.
And Max Jones.
The agitator,
of the London
perhaps, fits a bit of the Philadelphia
Mr. Philly.
personality as well.
I mean, who knows? Ron Hextall said, no, thanks, we'll just add another defenseman. And there is 6'7" Logan Stanley still sitting there.
Ron Hextall has not moved as the Philadelphia Flyers occupy that 18th position. Provorov with the first pick last year, then traded up to take Travis Konechny. Here's Gary Bettman.
We have a trade. Philadelphia trades this first-round pick, number 18, and a third-round pick this year, this draft, number 79, to Winnipeg in exchange for first-round pick number 22, which they previously acquired, and second-round pick in this year's draft, number 36. So we've got a swap of firsts and a third and a second, and it means Winnipeg's on the clock.
Oh, Kevin Cheveldayoff, you're putting them in a tough spot. The Winnipeg Jets will now pick 18th with their second selection this first round. Next on Sportsnet. Buffalo, New York, third time the Sabres host the National Hockey League draft, and it has been an eventful evening in this opening round. We saw indications that there was going to be some wheeling and dealing, and it's lived up to it. As the Winnipeg Jets, the latest team to move up in this draft. Already with the second overall pick in Patrick Laine, Kevin Cheveldayoff has just traded from 22 up to 18. with the Philadelphia Flyers. A couple of Wheat King general managers getting together, by the way, in Ron Hextall and Kevin Cheveldayoff. So it's now Winnipeg with the 18th selection.
I had him at 22 taking Logan Stanley, and I think that they feel with letting those picks go by that they're not going to get him there. I feel very strongly about Logan Stanley being taken here by Winnipeg.
Well, and you wonder if that taking a defenseman, and he's the best one left on the board, would insulate them a little bit against the uncertainty surrounding Jacob Trouba. They're going to have to sign him. They've got a lot of money with Dustin Byfuglien. You know, maybe they're already feeling they're not going to be able to get that done. But when you look at the Jets, 2 years ago, they look like they're the up-and-coming team. They make the playoffs. They get swept, but everybody's excited. They take a step back, and you wonder in 2 or 3 years, they may look back and say that was the best thing that could have happened to us because we ended up with Patrick Laine, and now they're going to get another top 20 pick, and they are really reinvesting in some good young talent on a team that already has a lot of good young talent.
If they can get a goaltender to play really well, clean up their penalty taking, committal to defense, then they could be dangerous.
Winnipeg Jets already with 2. Now check in at 18. You know, Cheveldayoff went up to the commissioner and said, sorry about that.
a lot of moving parts.
A lot of math there. A lot of numbers.
Winnipeg Jets are pleased to select from the Windsor Spitfires of the OHL, Logan Stanley.
You called it.
Yeah, at 22, they were just worried that he wasn't going to drop to 22. I mean, I had a peg to go to Winnipeg. They felt the same thing, obviously, said, hey, we better move up here. We're seeing a spot. Stanley hasn't gone yet. Defensemen are starting to go like crazy. We better jump up and get him. And they get their man. And there's a lot to like about Logan Stanley, and it all starts with the size. But probably the most improved player in the Ontario Hockey League this year. He's got a lacrosse background, so you know the hands are going to be okay. Starting to play with a much more nastier side to his game. Being that difficult guy who can look after the net front when everyone's coming down there and trying to set up shop. He's also a guy who's pretty good on the puck retrievals. There is some concerns about his agility and mobility because he's such a big guy, but he's really just stopped growing. 6'7", 224 pounds. The reach, the body positioning. No problem playing defense. It's just going to be a matter of being able to make the first pass at the National Hockey League level, and then because of a wicked shot at some point, he's going to play some power play as well.
And he's in a good situation in Windsor because you make a good point that he might have been the most improved, but he had a long way to go, so his trajectory is still moving up. But in Windsor, what they allow him to do is play and not worry about mistakes because he can be pretty hard on himself when he messes up. And the coaching staff there to lets him go, lets him make plays, don't worry about what happened, knowing that with confidence, a little belief in yourself, and some experience, you can see those other part of games round themselves out and make him a more effective player.
And no criticism of the previous Spitfires coaching staff, but the change really helped him, and they did. Or Trevor Letowski coaching the defenseman there, really encouraging him to do just what you said, Mike, make plays. This kid's got an 83-inch
Look at him.
wingspan.
It's a giant up there.
He is enormous, and he spent a lot of time working with Don Brade, the skating consultant in Toronto, on his footwork and his skating. He spent a lot of time doing that. He is a monster, and if he can get that mobility and play with skill, my goodness, I mean, the Winnipeg Jets, they've already got Tyler Myers. How much size do they need back there?
They got Buff and Tyler Myers. They're the big boys.
Well,
but that really will be, if he wants to become a good NHL defender, his agility, his edge work,
and they
his
can leave him
pivots,
there.
And yeah, he's not getting rushed anywhere, but that's where the work will have to come.
But when you look at the Winnipeg Jets now, they've they added that size. They've now added a 6'4" scoring winger and a 6'7" defenseman. I don't think they were a small team before. They ain't a small team anymore.
Central Division getting bigger.
Oh my!
So he has to learn how to handle pressure a little bit better. Well, he's going to play under the to the Memorial Cup next year with Windsor. Large wingspan in the entire draft.
That's going to be huge for his development, Darren. I think you make a great point there. I mean, you're going to play in the MasterCard Memorial Cup. There's all kinds of pressure from the host team, and it's actually starting right now. And looking at some of the other taller guys at 6'7" that have been drafted, you got Oleksiak, he was a first-rounder. Tyler Myers, first-rounder.
So
go down the list of
2 of 6 is pretty good in Winnipeg.
That's pretty good.
Jeff?
Logan, you're going to a team that has Tyler Myers and Dustin Byfuglien. That's a big blue line on the Winnipeg Jets.
Yeah, for sure. It's awesome. I'm thrilled to be a part of the organization, and those are two special players.
It just got bigger. I remember talking to Rocky Thompson, your head coach in Windsor, about you at the beginning of the season. He said at 6'7", right now with his skill set, he's a guaranteed third-round pick. What did you work on to get yourself up into the first round?
Yeah, I think I just listened to what they had to say. They coaches there know what they're talking about, so I just did what they told me, and it's worked out pretty well.
A lot of conversation with Winnipeg before the draft, combine or elsewhere?
Yeah, a little bit of the combine. I had a meeting with them, and then maybe once or twice through the year, but it's been a great process.
What do you still need to work on to get to that next level?
Yeah, I think my foot speed. I've got to keep working on that. Always going to have to keep working on it, but I'm just excited to be a part of the organization.
Are you done growing yet?
I think growing taller, yeah, I think I'm done, but just keep filling out.
Looking great. The jersey looks fantastic on you.
Oh, thank you. I love it.
Logan Stanley of the Winnipeg Jets there.
Grew 4 inches in his 16-year-old year. Number 4, very important to the Winnipeg Jets in this draft. They won that second lottery pick, moved up 4 spots, and were able to take Patrik Laine. And now Kevin Cheveldayoff makes the move to move up another 4 spots with his second pick that he had previously acquired in the Andrew Ladd deal. So this is in the last 2 years, they've had 4 first-round picks.
Well, and that's how you turn a negative story of a difficult season in which you miss the playoffs into a really positive story. And I'm not sure when Logan Stanley will be ready to play, but we know Patrik Laine's a pretty darn good chance he's going to play next year. And the Winnipeg Jets, I think, are going to be a team to watch. They've decided clearly they're going to play that heavy hockey that got the Los Angeles Kings a couple of Stanley Cups. That's where the Winnipeg Jets are headed.
Paul Maurice likes to play that way, and we'll see a couple interesting situations for the Jets to sort out this summer. One, you mentioned it, Trouba needs a new contract, Mark Scheifele needs a new contract. Right. Both those guys are going to get paid, and if they can't find a way to work Trouba's salary with 2 other big right-handed shot defenseman salaries there in Myers and Byfuglien, is that another potential trade chip? Right. That they can parlay that into Edmonton, who needs a defenseman. There are options there, but we'll see what happens with that. And also, former captain Andrew Ladd. What happens with him on the free agent market come next week? Perhaps could he look at a return to Winnipeg?
These guys are not a cap team. They're the lowest payroll in the National Hockey League, and they're not going to.
But that's going to be filled out by some of these RFAs.
Right. But money's always going to be a concern in Winnipeg. So they have to watch their dollars. They have to be resourceful, and they have to get
young players
to stay where they need to be.
Toronto, with the first overall selection, won the lottery, took Austin Matthews. But this is quickly turning out to be a battle for the most impact in this opening round with some of these teams that have been jockeying. 6 trades tonight, 6 first-round picks have been swapped.
Well, Darren, we came into this and I said there's 5 teams that have 2 first-round picks, and I thought when that's going on, there's a couple of things that happen. A, you can use them as bargaining chips. B, you have the ability to move up. C, you have the option now of taking a bit of a risk with that second pick. And the other part is trades, and we've seen 3 of them. 3 of the teams with 2 first-round picks have already made trades.
So now it's the New York. I was going to say now it's the New York Islanders. All the defensemen are gone.
Yeah.
They know that they're not losing Travis Hamonic. He's decided he's going to stay, so that helps. But they are losing some forwards, probably to free agency, including their goal-scoring winger Kyle Oposo. So you wonder if they're going to look up front.
I'd like to take this opportunity to thank the city of Buffalo for the warm hospitality. And I'm going to introduce Velu Kotonen, who will announce our pick.
New York Islanders select forward Kiefer Bellows.
Father played in the NHL, son drafted in the NHL. It's been a reoccurring theme, as that is the son of Brian Bellows, drafted 2nd overall way back when.
He's a lot like his dad, and he's a big, thick guy who plays a little maybe heavier game than what his dad brought to the table, but there is no question. This guy's a shooter. He's a scorer. He wants the puck on his stick and off the stick. He's got an NHL-ready shot, maybe the next best shot in this draft to Patrik Laine. And you're looking to add goal scoring. You guys talked about Oposo, goal scoring winger. This is a guy, I don't know if he can step in right away and do that job, but 2, maybe 3 years down the road, he's going to come in and be a sniper for the New York Islanders.
Another kid going to BU. How many players are BU going to get?
I mean, they're going to be tough to get ice time.
That's a good freshman class.
Yeah, that's a pretty good group. And, if Patrik Laine, we talked about him, this is a kid who scores goals. The next, probably the guy who just scores goals, unless it's Julien Gauthier, is Kiefer Bellows. boy, this makes me feel a little old because I remember when his dad was the top young player coming up in St. Catharines, and everybody talked about him. And now we are these years. Now we're talking about the son.
If Kiefer has any questions on how to deal with pressure and then living up to expectations as a first-round pick, his dad, when he was drafted in the NHL, Lou Nanne, general manager of the North Stars, compared him to Wayne Gretzky. And, I mean,
no pressure.
No, yeah, not that that's fair. So he's been through it.
And if you're going to be, if you're a forward and you're going to be one-dimensional, the best dimension to have is score goals. I mean, it's the hardest thing to do. It's the one thing that will keep you around forever, and he has that. 50 goals in 62 games with a development program.
He's never looked like his dad, too.
And they are,
ever.
yeah.
And you know what? He's had to sit there. He plays with Clayton Keller with the U.S. National Team Development Program, and he saw Keller go much higher. So he's now had to sit back and wait and wait and wait. So a little bit like Jacob Chychrun, he may have say, okay, let me show you why you guys picked a bunch of, you shouldn't have picked a bunch of guys before you picked me.
Look at the 50-goal seasons with the National Development Program, the United States Hockey Program. If he can turn out like
any of those
Kane
guys,
or Kessel, Matthews and Bellows on a pretty good run. You saw Charles Wong up there. He's going to step back. Scott Malkin, Jonathan Ledecky will take over the ownership situation with the New York Islanders on July 1st. To 20, the Detroit Red Wings back on the clock. The first round continues on Sportsnet. I want to take you through the picks that have been made so far tonight. The top 10, Austin Matthews, no surprise at 1. Patrick Laine to Winnipeg, stays with the script. And then the Columbus Blue Jackets opted for Pierre-Luc Dubois on his 18th birthday. A couple of Finns round out the top 5. Should note, with all this wheeling and dealing tonight, the first 10 picks have all stayed with the same team. Detroit was originally scheduled to select 16th, but they moved Pavel Datsuk's contract to the Arizona Coyotes, who had their own little wall of fame coming together when it comes to dormant contracts.
That's quite a lineup they have on their active roster. They currently have Pavel Datsuk, who they just acquired, pretty good player.
Not bad.
Probably headed to the Hall of Fame. They also have Chris Pronger, who's so but if they could just get those guys to play. But
this is Kenny Holland's 19th draft as general manager of the Detroit Red Wings. They've made the playoffs every year under his tutelage, 25 overall.
So 2 years ago with the 15th pick, they get Dylan Larkin. Pulls a rabbit out of his hat. Detroit's been a very good drafting organization many years. Ken Holland is a scout by trade. What can they do with number 20? Sammy, what are you thinking?
Oh boy, I don't know. Jeff Finley is their head scout there now. Jim Nill did a great job before that, before he moved on to the Dallas Stars. So it's kind of like looking at Nashville picking a defenseman. You never argue, and I never really argue with what Detroit does with their picks. And I love the pick that you mentioned, Dylan Larkin. He's turned out to be a fantastic player with a bright future ahead of him. So I never argue with Detroit.
And they're not shy about going off the board.
Thank you to the City of Buffalo and the Buffalo Sabres for your great hospitality this week. The Detroit Red Wings are pleased to select from the Chilliwack Chiefs of the BC Hockey League, Dennis Chalowski.
Is that off the board?
Well, he was ranked 23rd by Central Scouting. What's interesting about Chalowski, he really had midterm. I think he was 48th at midterm. Another Tier 2 player from that BC league. And he really jumped up and was rising like a rocket towards the end of the season.
His big rise started for me at the World Junior A Challenge. He played really well for Team West there. They went on to do good things in that event. And then the same thing in Surrey, BC at the Prospect game. Played extremely well there. A Chilliwack team that was pretty good. But here's a guy in his WHL Bantam draft year was 5'6", 120 pounds. He was so skinny his eyes were single file. And now you look at him, and here he is at over 6 feet, 180 pounds. His brother's 6'4", so they think there's still more room for this guy to grow. And
were you sitting on that just for him, or were you going to fit it in no matter what?
Well, I wasn't putting it in there for me.
Okay, he had that one. I got one for you. So the former NHLer he's most excited to meet one day, Harold Sneps. That's who he wants to meet.
That's old school.
He's a young man. He's headed to St. Cloud University. He wants to study engineering, so he's got a head on his shoulders, and a good year for the BC Hockey League. 3 first-round picks. I think have they ever done it? I don't think, but a great success for them. Their whole pitch is come to us, and then you can make the jump to U.S. college hockey. And
if you're good enough,
it helps you sell it.
You will get drafted. It will not be held against you. You will get drafted in the first round. And Pulaski's super smooth player, excellent skater, good vision, good passer. Some people might compare him at times to Keith Yandel, a guy who likes to handle the puck, really make things happen. You mentioned he's grown up a little bit. Still, that jersey's having trouble staying on right now. He still has some maturing to do, which is what college is best for. It allows you to work out. You don't play as often. You can train. You can get into the weight room.
So this is a much different
pick
than a year ago, and the year before that, where they looked like they were rushing the program a little bit. They were moving it along. Like Larkin stepped in the lineup a lot sooner than
that was
expected.
unusual for them, though. I think for them to do that.
Yeah,
but
they like
took
to
Evgeny
marinate their guys.
Svechnikov last year. We'll see when he's ready to play. But they are, banking. Anthony Mantha still there. They've got some other guys still coming.
It's just the second time in 16 years Detroit was going to pick in the top 16, and they moved down. Ron Francis back to the podium next on Sportsnet. 20 picks into the first round of the 2016 NHL draft here in Buffalo, and certain trends are starting to take hold. One, dominant performance by American-born players, and Finland has had a great night. Bring in Sofia Jurskovic.
Darren, thanks. I'm continuing to look at the reaction on social media, and actually a lot of current NHLers have been taking to Twitter to congratulate and welcome their new teammates. We're going to start with Blake Wheeler of the Winnipeg Jets, who says, big day for the Jets. Congrats to Patrick Laine and welcome to Winnipeg. P.S. Bring a heavy coat. Moving on to the captain of the Columbus Blue Jackets, Nick Foligno. Congrats to Pierre-Luc Dubois. Happy to have you, kid. Enjoy the night. Look forward to seeing you in a Columbus Blue Jackets uniform. And finally, Kevin Hayes, who plays for the Rangers, says congrats to his cousin. They are cousins with the Tkachuk family. To Matthew Tkachuk on being drafted by the Flames. Johnny Gaudreau likes his passes in stride and backdoor tap-ins. And how does he know that? Well, both Hayes and Gaudreau were teammates with the Eagles, as well as represented Team USA together internationally. So we have a lot more reaction that's coming up. A lot of players on Twitter reacting, congratulating their new teammates. And with that, Darren, we're sending it back to you.
All right, Sophia, thank you very much. Ron Francis, the Carolina Hurricanes management group and scouting staff, making their way back to the stage and the podium. Carolina Hurricanes' second selection of this opening round at the number 13 pick. They selected Jake Bean, defenseman, playing with the Calgary Hitmen, an offensive defenseman. Now with the 21st pick, the angle.
They can't possibly be looking at a defenseman, given it's going to be someone who could provide some offense. And there's lots of different question marks about offensive players here, but I think they may be second pick in the first round. You take a flyer. You take maybe you're looking at a guy who, whether it's a DeBrincat or a goal scorer that might have some holes.
You mentioned DeBrincat, but couldn't they use some size too? I mean, they've got Jeff Skinner. They just picked up Teravainen from Chicago. Maybe a little bit of size up front, and there's some big bodies still left on the board, Sam.
Carolina Hurricanes would like to make this selection in honor of Marshall Johnson, who after 40 years serving the game has decided to retire. We thank you for all your hard work, Marshall, and wish you all the best. With our selection, we'll pick from Val-d'Or, Julien Gauthier.
If you wanted size,
you got it.
Oh, yes.
It's right there.
Yeah, not unlike what his family has done, and somewhat like myself from the bodybuilding background. You look at his father, Martin, was a commentator and competed in bodybuilding. His grandfather, Denny, was a wrestler, also a Mr. Canada going back to the mid-1960s. But there were some concerns about this guy because of his first half numbers versus his second half numbers. And he looked like a world beater at almost a goal per game in the first half. Goes to play at the World Juniors, plays in a lesser role, maybe lost some of his confidence, comes back in the second half and doesn't produce quite as well. His point totals heavily favored in the goal department. There's no question about that.
Cy Young.
Yeah, 41 goals against 16 assists. So when you talk about primary points, it works out pretty well when you're a 41 goal scorer.
when you watch his highlight reel and you see some of the goals he scores, reminds you a little bit like Rick Nash. That same big frame, loves to get that left leg out, get the arms out, take it to the far post, use that reach, rangy guy, strong skater, can attack wide and attack the net. So there's a lot to like about him. You know he's going to max out what he can do physically because of his family's background, their commitment to weightlifting, to strength.
He had the longest leap at the combine.
120 inches.
By that.
120 inches. That means something.
He's got some lineage as well. We've seen it a lot. His uncle Denny Gauthier.
Right. Now, I mean, he is, we just had Dennis Cholowski go before that, and the jump he made upwards in the rankings towards the end of the season. Gauthier was the other. He was number 4 at midterm. He was right where the best guys were. So here I am. The scouts saw something in the second half they weren't keen on. Now, he's still the 21st pick of his draft crop. He still scored 41 goals. He still made Team Canada. And I'm sure the Carolina Hurricanes are going to say, wow, this guy was still here at 21.
I still question a little bit the vision of anyone who ends up with 16 assists, who plays as much as they do in junior.
Julien Gauthier plays out all the time. Something like Ron Hextall used to do. He is scheduled to go pick for the Philadelphia Flyers next at 22 on Sportsnet. Philadelphia, Florida, Anaheim, the next 3 selections. Check in with Jeff Merrick.
Thanks so much for the Carolina Hurricanes under Ron Francis. Like them big. Julien Gauthier is 231 pounds of big, as was his grandfather, Denny Gauthier Sr., who was a pro wrestler and bodybuilder as well. Have a look at some of these pictures that stretch back some decades. Was a runner-up to Mr. Universe, was Mr. Canada as well, and was a pro wrestler in the Atlantic Grand Prix circuit for Emile Dupré. He comes by his size naturally. That's his father, who is a bodybuilder now turned chiropractor. Darren.
Yeah, the short sleeve dress shirt.
I was going to say,
bodybuilder.
You can pull off the short sleeve dress shirt with pipes like that. It doesn't look like any family photo pic albums that I ever saw.
They got him working out at 9 years old. Started doing some light weight.
And his dad was
lifting.
criticized for that.
Yeah,
for Julien doing that.
He said it was going to stunt his growth. I don't think it's impacted him all that much.
Number 22. Philadelphia Flyers, who were originally scheduled to pick at 18 and dropped down in that trade with Winnipeg.
In honor of our founder and late owner, Mr. Ed Snyder, Philadelphia is proud to select from Russians under-18 team, German Rubasov.
His midterm rank mirrors his final rank. He finished 5th among European players.
Okay, there's a little bit of irony here. In the honor of the late Ed Snyder, the owner of the Philadelphia Flyers,
Russian?
the guys who ran the Red Army out of the Philadelphia Spectrum, they take a Russian player. So that's a little bit ironic, but it sounds like a smart pick. This kid is really, really talented. Here's the one problem, and this is why he's probably where he is. I don't think anybody's too concerned about. But he is under contract.
Explain the meldonium.
Oh, so the entire Russian meldonium, which the drug that Maria Sharapova tested positive for, the entire Russian team for the World Under-18s was yanked, basically because they were on a team-wide meldonium program. They feared they'd all test positive. He was part of that, didn't get to play in that tournament. Most NHL teams, I talked to a bunch of them, would this stop you from drafting them? No, nobody seems to think so. And actually, meldonium right now is currently not banned by the National Hockey League because they don't have the WADA program. The bigger problem for Rubtsov, and maybe it's not a problem because he's young and he'll get some time. He's under contract for 2 more years in the KHL. He'd like to come over right now. So there may be a little bit of some negotiating to be done and see if Philadelphia can get him over his contract. He can play in the American Hockey League right now. He's really seen as a really quality two-way center, a Jonathan Taves type player, like Tyson Jost, I think. And he's an interesting young guy. He really is.
He sure is. I know at the interviews and for most of the National Hockey League teams, they felt very much an old school Russian feel when he went into the interview, where he was tight to the vest, didn't say much, didn't give a lot of away, was kind of coy in what he was saying and in his answers. Of course, every National Hockey League team asked him about the meldonium thing, and when we talked to him about it, he just kind of blew it off. So Philadelphia obviously feels very confident when taking him here.
No team's been through more since the end of the season to the draft. A lot of shuffling in Florida. They pick 23rd next. Peace Bridge on the Canada-U.S. border as the National Hockey League draft comes to Buffalo, New York for the third time. Significant when you talk about the borders of that shot, when you discuss what's happened so far tonight from nationalities that have been selected. Canada with 9, United States having a heck of a night, Finland, Russia, and Sweden so far through the first 22 selections. Canada and the United States, but that Finnish program's come a long way to the top picks tonight in Puljujarvi and Laine.
Yeah, no question. You go back to about 7 years ago in Finland, and they had a conference there, and they said they really wanted to change things. And one of the things that they did was they went to the grassroots level. They hired full-time coaches with some of their younger players, and they felt that those younger coaches who were a little bit better coaches by putting them on a payroll helped to develop them from a young age. They practiced more. They started to use skill, creativity, encouraged all those things, and the off-ice thing as well is what's really helped this Finnish
Florida's
program.
got a great coach, Gerard Gallant, a finalist for Coach of the Year as the Panthers come in at 23.
Just one more point about what Tammy was saying. That's about what Finland has done with their program. What's the most important thing? These Finns are huge now.
Yeah.
They've developed these, Puljujarvi, Laine, Juolevi's not huge, but they have developed big hockey players. You tell me how they did that.
Yeah, well, that part I can't help you with. But they're winners, I can tell you that. You look at the under-18s, you look at the World Juniors, finished second in the World Championships. A pretty good run for Finland right now.
This might be an interesting pick, Florida.
Oh, yeah.
As they have revamped their front office, they have gone heavy into the analytics, and we're wondering...
No. Heavy into the analytics.
Emphasis on the heavy. and there was input from those guys previously as well, but do they follow the script of the conventional rankings? How does their thought process
and also
go
this
as
is a
they
team, they got rid of their chief scout, Scott Luce, just before
about a month ago.
Who knows what they're thinking?
They got their new guy, Keith Yandel, up there on stage. I guess when you sign a contract like that, you go where you're told. Absolutely, I'll come to the draft.
We're going to Buffalo.
I think
I'll
they
put
made
my
him pay his
jersey
own
on,
way.
and he's trying to his own flight. There's Brian McKay beside him.
I'd like to give a big shout out to our fans back at the Panthers Ice Den in Coral Springs, Florida. And I'd also like to congratulate Jim Rutherford, Mike Sullivan of the Pittsburgh Penguins to the Stanley Cup Championship. Florida Panthers would like to draft from HIFK of Helsinki, Finland, Henrik Borgstrom.
There's your fourth Finn, Tom Rowan, his first NHL draft, taking over from Dale Talon as the general manager of the Florida Panthers.
That is off the board. That is off the board without question. And all the mock drafts
Is this an analytics pick?
I don't know enough about his numbers to make that determination. I think.
Well, let's be clear. This kid was draft eligible last year.
Yeah.
And nobody took him.
Yeah.
Nobody took them. And they now you'd heard rumblings about the name, but this is Florida saying we're thinking a little differently than everybody else.
He was one of my dark horses.
Yeah,
when I was sitting down, I said, hey,
who are the others? You got to declare it now.
I just go with the ones that passed. But towards the bottom of the first round, if you can sneak in today. But lit it up in HIFK, the under-20 league. Little personality on the way up.
Hey,
little smile.
He's been waiting for that.
There you go.
If you go through an entire draft and then come back as a first rounder, you can do that.
But you talk about analytics, and maybe just a little example. 55 points last year, 29 goals, 26 assists. Of those 55 points, 41 of them were primary points.
But here we go.
Which to start looking as to what they see in this guy that make him jump maybe somewhere we didn't see him.
But here we go again. They were the small, plucky Finns. This kid's 6'3", and he's going to play whatever. Sam, I ask you again, what are they doing in Finland?
Must be in the food.
He looks like he could put on some weight a little bit. And another kid from Europe who looks like he's going to University of Denver next year. So play in the collegiate program, time to train, time to grow, time to mature both on the ice and off. Really invest in the weight. Off-ice stuff.
We talked about the new sweater for the Toronto Maple Leafs that they're going to wear next year. This is probably the first opportunity for a lot of people to see the new Florida Panther jersey.
Yeah, it's quite a military motif, and I think the organization has kind of undergone a military motif throughout, and analytics is obviously a big part of that. And looking at Borgstrom, though,
Just one second. Didn't the Florida Panthers just have their most successful season ever? Why all the changes?
Well, that's a
Why
great
are they
question.
turning
And
this
they've
thing
drafted
upside
quite
down?
well, too, under Scott Luke.
Well, I think part of the concern, not changes, but you have to augment how much they get by on great goaltending and a really solid first line bit of push a second.
A lot of good young players in Florida.
I'm not saying they don't have good young players, but if you look at some of the underlying numbers, they were outshot, they were out chances. The sustainability of what Florida did this year, if the goaltending takes a step back, are you looking at what Calgary did? Are you looking at what Colorado did?
Just quickly, though, I mean, Dale Talon built that team. He doesn't get to go up there and make that pick.
Barkov, Ekblad, Krause, and now Borgstrom, the last 4 first-rounders for the Florida Panthers. Anaheim and Bob Murray next in the first round of the NHL draft on Sportsnet. Strong representation tonight in the 2016 opening round of the NHL draft. Laine at 2, Puljujarvi at 4, Juolevi 5, and Borgstrom 23rd. That's 4 Finns in the opening round of this 2016 NHL draft. And you're starting to close in on a little bit of history. You look at Jarmo Kekalainen, general manager of the Columbus Blue Jackets. This is one off their most first-round picks ever, 4 to 5. And going back to 2002, Kari Lehtinen and the likes, an incredible crop there. So the Finnish domination you expect at the top end, now filtering through in the latter part of this draft.
And just to follow up on a point I made partially before, so we got Finland with those guys, we got the St. Louis connection, all those guys coming out of there. But with Dennis Chalowski, who went, where did he go? He went 20th to Detroit. So he's the 3rd player from the BCHL. It's the first time they've had more, or that many players. 3 players from the BCHL, 1 from the Western Hockey League. Explain that one, Darren Millard.
Well, we knew it was going to be a down year for the Western Hockey League.
Yeah, but it wasn't supposed to be. Remember that
Tyler Benson,
Sam Steele,
Cale Clegg.
We thought it was going to be a huge year.
Going back to their Bantam draft years, for sure.
So it does show how much can change between their junior draft year and the NHL draft.
Or maybe just a lot of good kids go to college, Damien.
Bowling Green.
Thank you very much.
You never did go through this, though, did you?
I went through the getting passed over part.
More than one.
You were the sad guy we showed on TV.
I didn't mean to bring up that part of it. I'm sorry.
Nice.
It's going to sound like I set you up for that.
He never got the sweater over the...
I was like Borgstrom.
Yeah.
Available in my 2nd year.
Anaheim's an interesting group. Terrible first half. Rallied. And then faded in that first round. This is a team that's changed its coach. Bob Murray showed great dedication to what was going on there, and Bruce Boudreau, and Randy Carlyle is back in charge.
Back to the future.
The Anaheim Ducks would like to thank the city of Buffalo for their hospitality. I'm going to ask Martin Madden, my chief amateur scout, to make the pick for us, please.
From the London Knights, Max Jones.
The Jones fan club up on section 302.
I like it.
Well, you want big, you want heavy, you want speed, all in the Western Conference. This is exactly what you're getting with Max Jones. And there's so much to like.
Hard game.
Honest, hard game. A guy who skates extremely well, has better hands than I think most people would give him credit for as he hugs Sean Day, good buddies growing up, on his way up to the podium. But fascinating players. Dad Brad played in the NHL, 148 games there, mostly in Winnipeg. Watching Jones win a MasterCard Memorial Cup with the London Knights, playing a secondary role, played as a 3rd-line guy. But when you look at the 3-line NHL that it has become, Max Jones fits perfectly because he'll probably play a 3rd-line guy, but may have some potential to play up in the top 6.
So you mentioned his dad played in the National Hockey League, his father Brad. His stepdad played 2 seasons in this queue. His brother Mitch is a defenseman in the ECHL with Alaska. So I said to him one day, oh, you know, who was really inspirational to him? He said, oh, my mom. She was a diver at the University of Michigan. She said that really helped refine his mental approach to the game. But his biggest achievement, maybe until now, that he talks about all the time, he finally outbenched his brother last summer. That was what really meant a lot to him.
Household battles. His number one asset. You love that. Maybe the question mark, digging the suspenders, is does he play under control enough? And not just as far as physically, but within the structure of a team game. Whatever that team game is, whatever you diagram, he is a bit of a buzzsaw out there that kind of runs around looking to make hits, looking to chase the puck. And will he think it to be under control enough to be effective in the NHL?
Oh, he really almost cost the London Knights, who's got a 12-game suspension in the middle of the Ontario Hockey League playoffs for a headshot on Justin Brack of Owen Sound. And, you know, that could have been the end of his season, but the Knights kept going, and he got back for the final 2 games of the OHL final and the Memorial Cup. One thing about him, he's a terrific penalty killer.
Yep.
So
and you love that about a guy who brings energy and a little edge.
Reach.
Exactly.
If you can trust him to kill penalties, that's a big bonus.
He's going to have to find a balance, though, between that honest, hard game that you hear from some scouts and crossing it in that 12-game suspension. Anaheim will be back at 30th overall. Up next, the Dallas Stars and Jim Nill at 25. The first round continues on Sportsnet. Time in the first round of the NHL draft where you can really zero in on some trends, and we knew that the second generation factor was going to be part of the 2016 draft, but it's really stepped up in this opening round when you look at Brian, Jeff, Brad, Michael, and Keith all watching their kids be selected in the first 24 selections tonight. This is really something that we've watched take hold over the last probably 8-9 years in the National Hockey League draft. I don't know whether I don't know what the explanation is.
Well, I mean, there's a genetic explanation because if your parents were elite athletes.
But it didn't seem to happen a lot 20 years ago.
And I think perhaps the willingness of teams that are around my generation to allow the kids to come to the rink.
Yeah, that may be it.
And I don't think maybe in the 70s and 80s they were supposed to be in the dressing room because who knows what kind of language and other things.
Yes, Michael, tell us, Michael.
As opposed to when I was there, it was all fitness and preparation. No, but I remember I was on the ice with Max Domi. I was on the ice with Christian Thomas when they were 4, 5, 6.
Yeah.
I was on the ice with Matthew Tkachuk when he was 4 years old. They were encouraged to come out, and the dads brought them down, and they shot on the goaltenders in net after practice. And I think
it's the era of the smoothies.
It's the protein shake era. Yes, but I think that that's a huge part of it. That those guys grew up around it, appreciate what it is, and also the growth of the American hockey, the development program. A lot of American kids who are NHLer sons arriving in the NHL.
This is a fun franchise to watch since Jim Nill's taken over.
Yeah.
Lindy Ruff as the head coach. Dallas will pick 25th. Lost in the second round this year.
Hey, we want these guys to be successful. We need more offense in the game, the way they're playing the game.
If we're going to copy people, copy them.
Yeah, we need more teams to say we want to be like the Dallas Stars.
Thank the City of Buffalo for their hospitality. For our selection, I'd like to have Lindy Ruff, our head coach.
Thank you. The Dallas Stars are proud to announce from the United States Junior Hockey League, Riley Tufte.
Dallas plays to the Buffalo crowd by letting Lindy Ruff come back to Buffalo, where he's longtime head coach of the Sabres.
You know, it's interesting that he announced that he's from the United States Hockey League. He is.
I thought he was from high school.
He is sort of. See, here's Riley Tufte. So that game we talked about, Luke Cunnin scored 2 goals, the All-American game. Riley Tufte was in that game. Talked to him then. What are you doing this year? And he started the season with the Fargo Force. Love that name. The Fargo Force in the United States Hockey League. Played there for a little bit and said, nah, I'm going back to high school, Blaine High School. He goes back. He scores 47 goals in 25 games. Their season ends. He goes back to Fargo and finishes the season with them. Now, how you figure out what this kid is exactly between all that. But I'll tell you one thing, he's 6'5" and he can skate like the wind.
The reasoning is he goes back to high school simply, and I asked him about it. I want to be with my buddies. Now, the Minnesota high school thing is a little bit culty, and it's a little bit different. You know, they post the YouTube videos with the guys in the best haircuts in the tournament and all that sort of thing. They pack it out at the arena there in Minnesota with 18,000 people. But really, that raised a lot of eyebrows for National Hockey League scouts when they're at the combine and he simply says, you know what, I just wanted to go back and hang out my for a couple of teams that I spoke to because of that, because they feel like, hey, if you want to be a pro, you want to make a career out of this, then dedicate yourself to the craft. Don't worry about going back and play with your buddies. Worry about making a career out of this game.
I give him some credit for it.
I enjoy the balance. I mean, you saw in the video, he's a huge kid.
He's a big, but look at him right there.
Laine High School is where Nick Bjugstad went. Tufte's brother is best friends with Nick Bjugstad. Nick Bjugstad is often compared, or Tufte compared to Bjugstad. Big guys, rangy. But I'm with you, Darren. I don't mind a guy who's willing to say, I'm probably not going to be in the NHL in a year or two. I've got a sense of who I want to be and what I want to become, and it's not just a hockey player. And so to go back in high school, he's going to go to Duluth next year, play college. He's going to have 2 or 3 years in university before he's faced with a decision whether he wants to commit to a professional career.
I mean, I don't mind it, actually. I'm just telling you what the National Hockey League guys. But what is kind of cool,
disagreeing with those guys.
Sometimes we forget that they're kids.
Yes.
Let them be kids.
Yeah.
I kind of thought it was cool. I don't know if I would have taken them as a result of that, but it was kind of cool to think that, yeah, I'm going to be a kid here. Sorry about your luck.
We kept hearing people say, what are they, the kids that were playing in the BC Junior League, in Tier 2 hockey? What are they? We need to see them. So this must have been a really tough evaluation.
Right, and it's not like he showed up on any of these major tournaments and you could evaluate him there. So we're going to see, the Dallas Stars have done exceptionally well at drafting and really got some good value. They took a bit of a flyer last year on Denis Gurianov. Now this one.
Gary Bettman has made his way back to the podium, which can mean one thing.
We have a trade to announce. Washington trades the upcoming pick number 26 to St. Louis for pick number 28 in this draft and a third-round pick number 87 in this draft. Washington and St. Louis swap picks, and there's a third-round pick involved. So St. Louis, you're on the clock. You have the next selection.
Third-round pick appears to be the going rate. So, St. Louis Blues have made the trade to move up to 26. Who do they want? You'll find out next. The first round continues on Sportsnet. Continuing from First Niagara Center, the opening round of the 2016 NHL Draft. Anaheim with one more selection, 30th overall, but first to Jeff Merrick.
Thanks, Darren, alongside Trent Frederick, who just told me off air. You're speechless right now?
I guess, or I got a little words coming through my mouth, but not much. So.
Are you surprised, though?
A little surprised, pretty excited. So I guess that's the best word for it.
You know, for the longest time, the St. Louis hockey program was one of the best kept secrets around North America. Considering what we've seen in the opening round this year, Trent, I don't think it's a secret anymore.
No, it's for sure not a secret. It all comes back to people staying and coaching us growing up, and we've got guys like Jeff Brown and Keith Tkachuk coming back and Al McInnes, so it's just awesome to see that.
It's a great program. You're a wonderful player. Congratulations on being selected by the Bruins. Trent Frederick of the Boston Bruins. Let's head now to Elliot Friedman. Freach.
All right, with the vice president, the general manager of the Edmonton Oilers, Peter Chiarelli, and Peter Puljujarvi, did you think the way that all of us were feeling this draft would go, he would end up in Edmonton?
Well, the consensus for a long time, at least publicly, was that he was 3. We, ran drafts where he might drop. I was a little surprised, but at one point we were kind of, and a couple other teams, we were jockeying for positions for maybe moving down. And at that point, I kind of got a feeling that he might drop to us, so we kind of pulled back a bit. I think he's the second most points in World Junior. He was the MVP last year, the youngest MVP. So we were happy to get him. A big, strong kid, big farm kid from northern Finland. So we were happy to get him.
You were doing a lot of walking around. There was a lot of footage of you having several different conversations. Did you at all come close to moving out of that 4 spot?
Yeah, we were. I mean, we were looking at maybe moving down. We were also looking at a bigger deal. So it was close. I mean, it was kind of you saw the culmination, and it's always a little weird when you're under the camera with trying to figure out these deals. But we were close. But at the end, we decided to keep our pick.
Thanks very much, Peter.
Okay, you're welcome.
Darren?
Thank you. You know you have to wrap up the interview when the team's making their way to the stage and the podium right behind you. This is Anaheim's second selection in this opening round. Their first with Max Jones, left winger, at 24th, and then back up at 30th. This is the original deal was Pittsburgh's pick, then went to Toronto, Freddie Anderson, and now it's over to Anaheim.
The original Pittsburgh Phil Kessel.
Yep.
And now Anaheim gets to close it out.
Anaheim selects from the Regina Pats, Sam Steele.
It is a late rally from the Western Hockey League, and a player that
this is a good story though.
Yeah,
this
sure
is a good story in a lot of ways, and not just because he had his ups and downs this season. He's one of the kids who came with that Bantam draft, and they were all going to be first-round picks, and that didn't turn out quite that way. Played on the line with Brett Howden at Pierre-Luc Dubois at the Ivan Halinka, was underwhelming, and then it just sort of didn't seem to catch fire. But then he had a really good playoff. And for anybody who knows Sam Steele's individual story, his older brother Patrick 5 years ago died in his sleep while he was playing for Canmore Tier 2. And he still gets obviously very emotional about it. This year he changed his number to number 23 from number 39 to honor his brother, and now turns into a first-round pick. So if you like good hockey stories, Sam Steele's got a good hockey name, and he's got a good hockey story.
You know, it's funny. It was out before we went on air, and someone of Sam Steele's camp came over and said, we got a guy that's going to get picked here today. Does he need a pass? And I'm like, nah, I think if you sit down, I think he's going to be okay, and someone will come up and get him and usher him down onto the floor. So pretty neat story about Sam Steele. But playing for John Paddock there has really done some remarkable things in Regina, along with Dave Struch, their assistant coach and assistant general manager, and a guy who got off to a very underwhelming start, as you mentioned, but it really came on in the playoffs. Played well as a good playmaker, is loaded with character.
Good power play player.
Excellent on the power play. Yep. Very crafty, can really distribute the puck. Maybe not a finisher, but as far as getting down on the half wall and the goal line, he is excellent at finding the seams, finding spots, and passer by nature. Not the biggest guy, not the strongest skater, but get the puck on his stick, give him a little time and space, he can make some good things happen.
Boy, it sure looks like Randy Carlyle approves of this pick. Back at taking control of the Anaheim Ducks for next year, returning as head coach with Bruce Boudreau in between. But Sam Steele's a player that I think would succeed under a coach like Randy Carlyle.
Well, and the thing too is when you evaluate Sam Steele, you have to also know his injuries history. He's missed a lot of time with injuries the last couple of years. So when you just look at the numbers and you say, well, that's not what we expect of a first-round pick, but he's battled a serious ankle injury, he broke his wrist. So, you know, those are things that good teams, and Anaheim's been known as not just a good team, but a really good scouting team. They do their homework, probably got all that stuff, and made sure they drilled down deep on this pick.
We told his story. Here he is with Jeff Merrick.
Darren, thanks very much. Alongside Sam Steele, it seemed as if the moment the Anaheim Ducks, Sam, announced your name, you, your family, everyone around you was just overcome with emotion. Can you describe that for us?
Yeah, you know, it's such an honor to be drafted, you know, and to be drafted by such a great organization. It's unbelievable. You know, there's not many words for it right now.
You know, your story, Damian Cox was just mentioning a couple of seconds ago, all the injuries that you've battled, what you've been able to persevere over the last few years. When you look back on it now and you see yourself right now, just moments ago, putting that jersey on for the first time, what kind of memories go flashing through your head?
You know, it's tough to put those memories into perspective, but you know, it's like you said, I've battled some injuries over the last few years, so it's awesome. You know, it's awesome to be drafted, first of all.
Your team, the Regina Pats, have been quite a story as well, as have you as well. How much has John Paddock meant to your career, your head coach?
Yeah, it's pretty unbelievable to have a guy like that coaching, you know, with all the experience and knowledge he has. So I think we're a pretty lucky group to have a coach like that.
And I think everyone's thrilled for you. Congratulations, Sam.
Thank you very much.
Sam Steele, wait for it, first-round draft pick, the Anaheim Ducks. Darren.
From not knowing whether you go in the first round to being predetermined, and Austin Matthews cap off the first round next on Sportsnet.
Programmet presenterades av Unibet, av spelare för spelare. Och Bet365, odds och livestreamad sport i mobilen.